Chapter 1, Itachi's POV. I had just heard the news of the Jinchuriki's attempt to stop Sasuke from leaving Konoha. Sour bile tainted my mouth at the thought. Instead of Sasuke using his friends and village to gain enough power to be a protector, he let his hate consume him. Sasuke was consumed with jealousy, anger, and obsession, causing him to turn on the closest friend of his, Naruto. An unexpected development. The epitome of stubborn drive, the boy defied all odds and obstacles in his way, not for revenge, as one would expect, despite being betrayed by a village. No, instead the boy became strong for the sole purpose of protecting his friends and village. And what had the boy done? Taken on his friend to keep him from leaving, trying to show that people cared and would Sasuke be strong. I smiled. The boy could be the hero that the ninja world needed. Furthermore, a rumor had brought me to Konoha. The prankster of Konoha had attained Sharingan. If this was true, having Naruto tap into this potential could allow him to stop the Akatsuki and bring a new age to the ninja world. An idealist at heart, but one with the charisma and motivation to bring these into fruition. And who better to train him than I supposedly deceased shinobi who had tried to stop the genocide of his clan, but ultimately was mortally wounded in the process. Crickets chirped endlessly on this moonless night, a cool breeze blowing the occasional leaf onto the rooftops. Clouds covered the moon, leaving the illumination only to the street's lanterns and the bright night stars. Flitting between the shadows, I reached the hospital, dodging patrols of Leaf Neen. I spotted the only window with its shutters open on the top floor. A small piece of red paper stuck to the top corner, Kakashi's all-clear signal. I drummed my fingers on the warm glass to signal my arrival. The window shot open and an arm tugged me in by the wrist. Good. You made it, Itachi. I smiled at the former leader of Team Row, noting that the events as of late seemed to have aged the silver-haired shinobi years. The creased brows and bags under his eyes showed an exhaustion and anxiety beyond measure. I gave him an awkward pat on the shoulder to comfort him. Kakashi chuckled softly at the attempt, a bit of the pain disappearing from his face. Listen, I need your help with Naruto. Now that he has it and the 9 tails, I don't think I'll be able to do him the justice he deserves. I just nodded, worrying the case that someone was listening. I signed, do you know how he got the eye? Kakashi sighed, signing, I have a crazy theory, but that's it. Continue, I urged. You may be right, and that could make all the difference in how he should be trained. Besides, the sooner Naruto masters the Sharingan, the sooner he may be able to control the fox and be able to save his friend and village. The silver ninja cracked his knuckles, hands shaking. Sasuke may have given Naruto an eye, replacing it with that of Naruto. I recoiled. Based on what I had seen, the boy didn't seem exactly one to part with power. Are you blind? The same student who would betray his friends and village at the promise of power. I countered. It hurt to admit it, but Sasuke had become obsessed with growing powerful and killing the Uchiha Slayer. Kakashi flinched, as if he had been kicked in the gut. The weight of failure and guilt seemed to crush him. Look, you're not wrong. He is obsessed, but I tried to instill these ideas into your brother, and he even looked up to and admired Naruto, who grew so powerful so fast. It's possible it was a parting gift or marked a arrival. While that couldn't be discounted, it seemed unlikely. That would imply that Sasuke cared that much about the rivalry and viewed it as a source of strength. Yet, there was another possibility. Kakashi, while we can't discount your theory, it's possible that it's only Dash. A groan and yawn from the bed interrupted the conversation. I leaped into the shadows and cast a quick Jinjutsu. Where am I? A groggy voice croaked from the bandaged figure. Kakashi, what are you doing here? The blonde shot up in surprise, wincing at the painful reaction. The Jounin gave Naruto and I smile, as if nothing had happened. Just checking up on my injured student is all. You're at the hospital right now, and have been for a couple days. Kakashi's tone reverted to the somber one. After the fight with Sasuke, we found you beat up with fist-size hole in your shoulder. The only thing that kept you alive was the nine tails. And Sasuke? Where is he? Naruto replied, interrupting Kakashi. Clearly the kid was more interested in his friend's well-being than his own. A curious one, isn't he? Stupidly brash, but brave and caring nonetheless, completely unfazed by his injuries. The silence said it all. He got away and decided to leave, huh? Damn it, I could have stopped him, but I held back. If I didn't, then maybe Dash, Naruto growled, clearly pissed at himself as he dug his nails deep enough into his palm to draw blood. Stop it, Naruto. It is not your fault that Sasuke got away. If anything, it proves that you are compassionate. Nothing you could have done would have stopped Sasuke from leaving. Even if you beat him, he would just leave again. Kakashi cut in understanding the importance of having Naruto in a stable attitude, lest the Kyuubi tries to resurface. We will go find him, but first I would like to ask you a couple questions. Did you know you have Sharingan? And do you remember how you got it? Kakashi asked urgently. You mean the same eyes that you and Sasuke have? No. Hold on. I think I remember, but it is kind of fuzzy. All I remember is looking up and seeing Sasuke put something into my eye. A sharp pain kept stabbing me while he was doing it until he placed a thing where my right eye was. Naruto thought for a quick moment before connecting the dots, his face lighting up in surprise. He removed his right eye and traded it with mine. I frowned. There was something off about that. Sasuke didn't know medical skills, so how could he reattach the eye? But supposing it was true, he decided to gift one of his eyes to a friend he had just defeated? And for what? Clearly, I didn't know my brother too well, which honestly wasn't out of character considering my poor siblinghood. I usually blew him off and didn't help him that much, nor did I keep my promises either. If only I had been kind to him and not made him feel insecure and like a reject, as my father had. Naruto, I have someone I would like you to meet. He can help you become much stronger and develop your Sharingan, Kakashi said a little louder than before. Taking the hint, I melted out of the shadows, eyes locked with Naruto's, noticing the Sharingan was in its active state. Naruto looked at me in awe at first, seeing my two Sharingan, clearly understanding that I was an Uchiha. After a moment, his eyebrows rose and his eyes had a look of recognition. Confusion and anger filled his eyes. Itachi Uchiha. He mumbled defiant and his face plastered with more than a little anger. How are you still alive? And why haven't you told Sasuke? He's been so cold trying to avenge you. The only bright part of his childhood before the massacre. Can you imagine that pain? More than you think, Naruto, I replied, stung by his outburst. The kid had a way with words that wrenched your soul. But I can't just magically appear to Sasuke's side since people were, and still are, hunting me. Not only that, but there are things that I did that night that can't be forgotten or taken back. Can you imagine seeing your brother struggle in pain, but be unable to do as much as whisper a comforting word? I asked calmly. Naruto's pensive face and the conceding exhale of breath signified that it had the intended effect. Well, that may be true. Sorry for lashing out at you. The apology was sincere, a slight look of understanding on his face. Can you tell me how Sharingan work? I've seen them in action, but don't really understand it. All in due time. First, you need to rest up. Meet me on the Hokage Monument at 8 o'clock a.m. sharp. And unlike Kakashi, I'm always punctual, I instructed with a smile. Naruto smiled with an eager determination in his eyes, giving a knowing look at the embarrassed Kakashi. All right, Itachi, be ready because I'm not going to hold back. I give you my word that I won't let you down, Naruto said a little too loudly, smiling and giving me a thumbs up. Okay, maybe he's a little too excited and cocky, but I'll give it a shot. If I heard right, Sasuke left a trail of blood and was dragging his right leg after the fight. I smiled a bit at the thought. Almost immediately, Naruto collapsed back to sleep snoring. Clearly the boy needed a rest, but if he wanted to learn how to use the Sharingan quickly, I couldn't wait any longer. Before leaving, though, I set Naruto's alarm clock so he'd only have 3 minutes to dress, prepare himself, and arrive to train. I smiled smugly, knowing that somehow Naruto would pull it off one way or another. Thank you, Kakashi, for giving me this opportunity. I think it is exactly what I needed and how I plan to restore the Uchiha, as well as forgive myself by training the last Uzumaki, I said with a smile. The white-haired ninja nodded and gave an eye smile. He gave me a friendly hug. Anything for a friend. Besides, I owe you for teaching me the Mangekyo. And Itachi, make sure to bring out Naruto's full potential without changing his personality too much. Make Minato proud of his son. As he said this, I turned and leaped into the night. Gazing at the stars from atop the Hokage monument, I prayed. I promise I will, Kakashi. For you, the fourth, and the rest of the world. I promise to give Naruto the strength he needs to bring the peace and understanding he wants in the world. Those words seal my fate. Either I would succeed in bringing out the light that I saw in Naruto, or I would die trying. The world depended on it. Chapter 2. Itachi's POV. It took me hours, but finally I did it. The training ground was completely set, complete with tripwires, different chakra seal traps, and so forth. Not only that, but the location just behind the Hokage monument was the perfect training ground, hidden from view and in a place not many would venture to. All right, lastly, I have some chakra paper, so I can teach Naruto to use his chakra nature later. I said to myself, taking a deep breath of cool fresh air, the smell of trees and grass tickling my nose, before making my way to the fourth Hokage's head to wait for Naruto. Just then, he materialized in front of me in a blur of orange. You think that you could stall me with those stupid tricks? That's something only a novice prankster would come up with. Itachi, Naruto said with a grin. His eyes, steeled with confidence and excitement, told me everything I needed to know. The blonde shinobi was wearing the customary orange and blue attire. I returned a smug grin. HN, then why are you standing there? I asked. What an idiot. I guess Naruto doesn't value caution as much as he should. He was standing right on top of a seal, something that an activated Sharingan would find immediately. Oh well, before the boy could react, I activated the seal, transporting me and Naruto in a puff of smoke. Naruto landed on a pressure plate, sending a kunai shooting out from the trees around him. As if by instinct, though, Naruto jumped in the air, using chakra to gain an extra 4 meters to the jump. The kunai slashed his pant leg and boots as the shinobi narrowly escaped, only to trip the next trap. A water clone in a hood jumped out of nowhere and attacked Naruto with a gout of flame from the great fireball jutsu. Fuck, this is bad, I groaned, seeing my only student engulfed in the attack, perhaps cooking the boy to a crisp. I stiffened receiving the knowledge from the now dispelled water clone. I smirked in excitement. Naruto used a replacement jutsu with a log just before impact, having located the user. Just as soon as the jutsu ended, Naruto stabbed the clone in the leg and chest with 2 kunai. Good job, Naruto, I told him after he reappeared. That was unexpected. I didn't exactly know what to look for, so thank you. He leapt in front of me from the tree branch with a grin. So what now? I'm going to show you how to activate the Sharingan. Use it sparingly as it takes a steady stream of chakra. Remember, use it wisely. The red eye freaked me out when compared to his left blue eye. It seemed so weird and unnatural. Naruto's face lit up with excitement, ready to learn the Uchiha skill. I chuckled at his excitement because he had no idea what it took to awaken it, the trauma that was required to unlock it quickly and utilize it perfectly. Immediately explaining the process to him, Naruto took some time to think. I told him the best way for him to awaken them is to call upon the feelings of pain and the like while sparring with me. Come on, Naruto, is that all you've got? I jeered at the boy, who was panting with exhaustion. We'd been sparring for 30 minutes, with Naruto using most of the jutsu at his disposal. I decided to keep the fight fair and utilize only the normal Sharingan. Surprisingly, it took a lot more energy and chakra to avoid Naruto and overcome his attacks. The Rasengan and mastery of Shadow Clone Jutsu made him exceptionally formidable. In addition, his chakra hadn't drained that far down, despite the length of the battle. I, on the other hand, had used up a considerable amount of chakra. To say the least, I was impressed. Nevertheless, Naruto still hadn't activated the Sharingan. All right, Itachi, let's see you try to fight this, Naruto spat, angry that he hadn't been able to deliver any major attacks. I could see that if I pushed just a little more, the Sharingan would click. Brushing away the blood trickling from the sides of his mouth, he uttered, multi-shadow clone jutsu, flipping through the signs. Dozens of shadow clones appeared all around the clearing. I can't say I wasn't impressed. The sheer amount of chakra Naruto possessed naturally was very large. Naruto Barrage, he shouted. Almost as if on command, all the shadow clones flew at me in a formation that blocked my view of the sky. Not only that, but they flung kunai and shuriken all towards me. Seeing the movement, however, I leaped to the right mid-throw, chucking my own volley of shuriken at 6 shadow clones, dispelling them. Only I wasn't fast enough. A few shuriken cut and grazed my legs, a couple kunai, even slashing at my chest. I couldn't counter this many clones with the handicaps I gave myself. The formation looked like a wall of chakra, except at the edges. Thus so, it was hard to counter their moves. Almost as soon as I landed, I caught sight of 3 different groups of 10 clones rushing me from each side. Feigning being caught off guard, I jumped into the air at the last minute. Fire release. Great fireball jutsu, I shouted, blasting all 3 groups with a large ball of flame. Yet another group jumped at me as I landed, forcing my hand. Without a thought, I launched a barrage of shuriken, taking each in the head or chest. Curse you, Naruto, for negating my Sharingan. Or are you only negating it? Did he figure out the Sharingan? Fire release. Great fireball jutsu. 3 Narutos shouted simultaneously, all from behind. The sound was my only warning. I jumped forwards, rotated, and countered with an overcharged water bullet, taking out the fire, the casters, and several other clones. The ground was pockmarked with craters, scorch marks, mud, and shuriken. Trees lay in ruins, and a multitude of at least 50 clones plus Naruto stood before me, all with Sharingan. Shit, I'm so screwed if he keeps this up. Almost as if by an answer to my silent prayer of Naruto maxing out, all the clones disappeared. Oh crap, Naruto shouted in alarm, presumably due to using most due his reserves of chakra. Just as I shifted my weight forward, Naruto launched 2 kunai paper bombs. Seeing the trajectory, I ducked and darted at him, preparing a counterattack. I reached behind me, grabbing 2 chakra blades and channeling wind chakra through them. Confused as to the attack, Naruto charged while creating a Rasengan. I groaned as he had realized one of my weaknesses. Rasengan, Naruto shouted as the sphere completely formed 3 meters before collision. Seeing that he planned to charge straight ahead, I feigned to the right before slide tackling Naruto. The blonde boy flew head over heels, slamming the blue Rasengan into the ground. Its pulsating rhythm transformed into a thunderous eruption, sending earth and rock flying halfway across the clearing. Naruto groaned, lifting his scratched and scraped face off the ground. I smirked, somewhat disappointed that he still managed to stand despite the shockwave and blast from his own Rasengan. Never mind the very low levels of chakra he now possessed. Groaning, the genin pushed himself up, legs shaking and wobbling, almost collapsing on the ground as he windmilled for balance. "Is that all you got, Itachi?" he asked, a hint of defiance penetrating through his pants and groans. The blonde was just standing there, half hunched over trying to catch his breath, never quite recovering. "Ah, I see you haven't given up yet. Do you concede? For your sake, I suggest you do." "Naruto," I responded, ice coating my words. Usually it was enough to deter people, but his grin proved otherwise. "I have to congratulate you on your sheer determination, but all that won't matter if you're completely outmatched." I smiled as I said this, proud to be training someone whose internal light shone so bright and true. I released the Jinjutsu just as I channeled wind and fire chakra into the blades and struck Naruto from behind. The Jinchuriki screamed in pain as his nerves were both slashed, cauterized, and burned. The shinobi collapsed face first and face planted, unconscious. 3 hours later, Naruto POV. Groaning groggily, I slowly came to. My eyelids fluttered open to see a green canopy above me, supported large tree trunks and the soft mattress of grass and leaves. I lay on my chest. I try to get up, but twin streaks of white pain lanced across my back. Muscles cramped, tensing from rips, tears, bruising, and fatigue. Two bandages were on my face, and I felt a large wrapping across my back. Sores from scrapes, cuts, and bruises dotted my skin like a leopard's. God, Naruto, why the fuck did you take on Itachi like that? I understand that he is more powerful than me and was holding back by to at most 35% of his power, but that was too much. The Uchiha was prodigy. You were the last in your class. So you are finally awake, Naruto. The calm, steely baritone could only be from Itachi. By the way, nice attacks. I see you were able to copy my great fireball, Jutsu, with your Sharingan. I am surprised you were able to copy that. You clearly have at least fire chakra. The fact the Uchiha actually commented and had calculated all of this was surprising and exciting. It's not every day that the best shinobi in Konoha compliments you. Thank you, Itachi. What about the Rasengan? I asked, eager to know exactly how my favorite and best jutsu was. Well, first off, Uzumaki, you need to work on your speed and your replacement jutsu. By doing so, you may be able to outmaneuver the Sharingan and most shinobi. Not only that, but you can essentially teleport behind your opponent and deliver attacks and jutsu before they can react. That being said, work on your stealth. After accomplishing all these, your Rasengan will be used to its maximum potential, Itachi commented, his eyes reflecting a steely concentration. It crushed my ego, but bolstered my confidence because I knew Itachi could pull it off. I looked up at the sky, watching the clouds as I had done with Shikamaru, attempting to obtain peace within myself. Cerulean blue made up the dome of the sky, and white puffy clouds breezed by sluggishly. Such a beautiful scene with a warm and not too bright sun, while the birds chirped away. Before I realized it, I faded out into my mindscape. The sewer and its slightly foul smell greeted me with open arms, and the sealed gate to the Kyuubi's lair lay in front of me. Hey, Fox Dash, why are you disturbing my sleep, Runt? And, more importantly, stop calling me that. You're really annoying. The fox's head appeared from the shadows, seeming groggy and pissed. His red fur and eyes, combined with the immense size, was still frightening. Then what would you like me to call you? I responded, putting on a facade of bravery. Thing is, he still scared the crap out of me. HN, how about Master or Almighty One? The fox chuckled at this, only confusing me more. Was he joking and already knew the answer? And more importantly, does he have a sense of humor that I could use to help become friends with him? If you really want to know Naruto, call me Kurama. It is my real name, and it not only has the best ring, but it's really been a while since anyone called me that. I would appreciate it if you did, kid. The fox gave a half smile, showing his teeth and a quasi-hopeful expression that only scared the shit out of me. Had he actually just asked me nicely to use his name? Either he is using this as a tactic to gain my trust in order to free him eventually, or just to become friends and have a symbiotic relationship. Seriously, Kurama? I'm not dreaming that you were just kind to me. Do you want to be to know friends, maybe? I asked, somewhat hopeful, if I could maybe Kurama would willingly share chakra without making me turn into a raging monster when I use too much of his chakra. Don't push your luck. I just have a little more respect now that Itachi has taken you under his wing. And by doing so, You may become the most powerful Jinchuriki yet. As of now, you are the weakest and I can't stand for that. Kurama growled, not entirely menacing, but reluctant to admit it. I shifted out of my mindscape as the fox's head disappeared back in the shadows, realizing that there was nothing more to talk about. Naruto, Itachi said, snapping his fingers in front of my face. I blinked and looked him in the eyes before remembering that Jinjutsu Kakashi and Sasuke sometimes talked about when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Did you understand anything I said, dumbass? Tell me how I will train you. I winced at the anger Itachi wore on his face and eyes which shifted into their Sharingan three-coma pinwheel. No, Itachi. I mustered lamely, feeling Kurama's conscience searing my own. I guess I can't really do anything about that. Naruto, after all, you do have the nine tails inside of you. Itachi let out a puff of air in mock defeat, calming down completely. Kurama, I murmured from the sheer shock of such emotional control. The raven-haired, palish prodigy looked powerful, like a panther, a deadly, stealthy killer. His red eyes projected kindness, coldness, and danger simultaneously. His black silk undershirt and Kevlar vest was hidden under a loose black cloak adorned by ravens. It only took Itachi a raised eyebrow and an incredulous look to get me to repeat my mistake. Kurama. The name of the fox is Kurama. We talked a little. I guess you could say he is not being as angry now that he doesn't have to get exhausted to barely keep me alive. The Uchiha looked at me, silent, for a long 2 seconds. Suddenly he burst out in a quiet laugh. So Kurama finally told you his name, eh? I might actually be able to work with the fact that you are becoming less hostile. And by the way, being helpless doesn't exactly help matters when someone is being kept a prisoner inside of you. In any case, Naruto, if what you say is true, it's possible that Kurama will surrender more chakra for your use the more you show your power. Moreover, the Sharingan can allow you to get control over him as well. Itachi said with an amused smile. No joke. Huh, I said, tentatively standing up, feeling the pain on my back resurface though not as sharp. So what do we do now, Itachi? First, I'm going to do some major taijutsu, speed, and strength training with you, along with the learning of Jinjutsu and a few combat jutsus. In order to do this, you will make 10 shadow clones for studying, 10 to learn how to spot and stop Jinjutsus, 20 to learn and master the wind bullet, and 10 to learn shuriken and sword techniques. You and I will work on your taijutsu and physical training. Make sure to allow them a good chunk of chakra to complete these tasks accordingly, meaning the studying shadow clones should have minimal chakra. Wait, why would I do that, Itachi? I asked, completely confused. It didn't make sense that by using shadow clones, I would master a jutsu. Trust me, Naruto, you will gain information when they are dispelled. That is why sometimes you grow quickly in battle and seem to gather skill faster than many others. You're gathering experience subconsciously. This time you will learn it consciously. If you want to bring back Sasuke, you will need to expand every aspect and learn increasingly more difficult jutsus, especially with the Sharingan. Itachi lectured, exasperated and ready to start my training just after I barely had much time to heal. Besides, I was hungry. All right, where to? I asked, walking after my new and perplexing sensei, his raven hair flapping in the wind. His eyes were set straight on a far-off mountain range. Patience, Naruto. Observe, concentrate, calm yourself. Itachi softly stated like a breeze, and come up with your own answers. Once you learn to do so, you will find greater strength in yourself and your friends. I nodded, agreeing with this perplexing and powerful Uchiha shinobi, not even daring to doubt him. He did become this powerful and smart on his own. For once in my life, I didn't retort back to my sensei, never mind hunger, thirst, or other discomforts. Chapter 3 Itachi. Naruto, start channeling chakra through your Sharingan slowly to activate it. Don't push it or you will screw up your right eye, got it? I asked, hoping that Naruto won't get too cocky and try to pump the Sharingan and risk to harm his optical nerve in the process. Activating my own Sharingan, I saw Naruto do exactly as I said. His chakra flowed up to the brain, into the optical nerve, and pulled into the eye. Steadily, he amped up the chakra input until it was a continuous stream that revealed the Sharingan's 3 tomos in his eye. Perfect, Naruto. Now let it keep flowing a little longer, and you should be able to maintain it in autopilot, I complimented. Naruto seemed to get the hang of the Sharingan quite quickly. It was only a week since he was able to activate the Sharingan, and he already had amazing control of the chakra flow to his eyes. Few Uchiha could refine control this quickly, and it was our Kekigan Kai. Yet the Uzumaki learns how to control our greatest asset, as if he were a prodigy. Then again, he almost defeated a curse-marked Sasuke while holding back without a single Sharingan. Itachi-sensei, what are you doing? Naruto asked, shaking me from my pondering mind. I shrugged and told the eager ninja to create 100 shadow clones. This way, he should easily master the new jutsu I had ready for him. That is, if he has the proper elemental releases, of course. Nothing. It's nothing you need to be concerned about, I replied, dismissing the question. Sorry about making you use the shadow clones. I wanted to see if you could do that while having a Sharingan active with a bunch of chakras spare. Dispel them for now, and then channel your chakra through this piece of paper. I gave him an approving smile as he took the paper from my hand. Sharingan still active, I channeled a small amount of chakra to the paper. Instantly it dampened, burned, and sliced in half. A strange combination for Naruto, staring at the wind, water, and fire elemental manifestations. I gave him a cocky grin and motioned him to do the same. A small breeze and noticeable change in heat lasted for a moment as the paper burned and sliced in half. Perfect, Naruto has both the wind and fire elements. This may work entirely in his favor, since he could amp up any fire or wind attack with wind or fire respectively, I thought. Naruto looked straight into my Sharingan with a grin. His mismatched eyes glinted with pride. Looks like you have an affinity with both fire and wind chakra natures, Naruto. It could serve you very well in the future to combine these two, as the wind will strengthen your fire chakra abilities. The good thing about it is that I can teach you techniques of both styles easily, I said, eager to begin reaching the blonde. I had an idea for Naruto's Rasengan that could prove to be devastating and destructive beyond belief. With enough wind pumped into flame, Naruto could create flame as hot as a star. That heat would melt or combust almost anything exactly like Amaterasu. Naruto, did Kakashi ever talk to you about the different chakra elemental natures? Naruto's raised eyebrows killed whatever hope I had of quickly having him start with a more complicated elemental justice without him just copying the ones I know. Well, basically, there are five basic chakra natures: lightning, wind, fire, water, and earth. I took an eternal hour with Naruto's constant questions, but I was able to give him the necessary explanation. If he wanted to get better than Sasuke, he needed to make an elemental version of the Rasengan and finish what the Yondu aim started. The hundreds of Narutos in the clearing clenched their teeth in frustration as they channeled wind chakra into a leaf, trying to hone the chakra and cut the leaf in half. So far, they have been able to cut partially through the leaf, or cut it diagonally, or cut it the short way, since they lacked valuable chakra control and finesse. This exercise should help Naruto hone his available power and stamina, especially important with wind chakra, which can cut through anything, even perfect defenses like Gaara's. Ura! A clone shouted as a chakra cloak began to surround his body. Clearly, the frustration was not helping Naruto. If only he was more emotionally stable, then it would be easy, but no, Naruto had to take after Kushina. I roll my eyes as I hit the clone with a gale palm, dispelling it for the 25th time today. Come on, this is impossible, Itachi, Naruto complained. The cuts, though more frequent, still hadn't achieved the straight cut. Look, how many times do I have to tell you? Dispel and create new clones every time you make a good cut before you reach 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, recycle. You already have 10 days worth of practice, Naruto, just in the past hour. The blonde shinobi was really getting on my nerves. He's had more than enough time to do this already. What the hell is his problem? Ignoring me entirely, the sweat-stained Naruto dispelled and reformed his clones. The anger and frustration that had previously permeated throughout the grass-covered clearing dissipated entirely. Calm determination replaced it, thrumming with chakra as Naruto and his clones focused it into their leaves at the same time. The sheer amount of clones and their combined chakra output was astounding. A whole multitude of blonde-haired ninjas in black and orange filled the clearing, the greatest eyesore, ever faint pinpricks of blue light in each of their hands. Using a substitution jutsu, I jumped to the highest supporting branch to see the awesome view. From up above, the multitude of Narutos seemed to focus solely on separating the leaf in half, causing blue-white pinpricks of light to form a galaxy of sorts. And all at once, 1,000 of the sharpest blades sung through the air. My jaw dropped as the 1,000 figures opened their palms, 2,000 half-leaves fluttering through the air having been caught by the breeze. In record time, Naruto had accomplished the skill 1,000 times in 4 hours. Nice job, Fox Boy. You finally accomplished something useful. I jeered with a smirk just to see whether Naruto was able to see his own worth and accomplishments on his own. Naruto, sweat dropped, seemingly embarrassed with himself at the supposed lack of achieving. Instantly, however, his face twisted into a mask more driven than before, ready to learn from what he didn't do. At least he isn't one to give up. Naruto, you know I was only kind of serious, right? I reply, trying to boost his ego more. It seemed as if his ego wasn't that large and was quite fragile. I patted the blonde shinobi on the shoulder, activated my Sharingan, and started to cast a quick Genjutsu on Naruto. A blur of black and orange streaked towards me so fast, I had to push off of Naruto to get out of the way of the torpedo that blended in with the setting sun. Wind release, gale palm, I shout, copying Naruto's hand signs. Or so I thought that was the jutsu. The three blasts of wind slammed into the shinobi, knocking up dirt and dust. The cloud was too thick to penetrate with Sharingan. I grumbled in frustration, palms sweaty from nervousness as I could not track any of Naruto's movements. Branches cracked, rustling leaves to the right. Probably just a squirrel, I thought, pulling out a kunai, just in case. The cloud finally dissipated, the sight catching me in the gut. There was no sign of the blonde genin anywhere. Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. A voice shouted from that same area. Barely able to react, I used a replacement jutsu with a log, but not before twin streaks of white pain slashed my left side. Landing on the other edge of the clearing, I could see 6 Naruto clones, each with one activated Sharingan. Almost as if on instinct, I activated a seal containing a genjutsu I used only for certain occasions. One flash, and all of Naruto's clones stopped, staring at the scroll. It was supposed to act on those who cared about their family. The clones dispelled instantly, and a gasp echoed from the quiet training ground. The only question remaining was where the gasp came from. No, 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 no. A desperate voice called from directly in front of me. I camouflaged myself in the shadow of the closest tree, wincing in the constant throbbing pain in my side. It felt as if someone left a semi-heated branding iron on my skin, the pain gaining ever closer to overwhelming. Warm liquid pooled against the skin and began to weigh down my shirt, a crimson stain expanding ever larger. Fuck you, Naruto. I winced, unbuttoning the jacket and taking off my shirt. I froze as I laid both eyes on the wound. 2 of the cleanest cuts I've ever seen adorn the edge of the bottom left upon my six-pack, cutting their way to just above the hip bone. The only way Naruto could have done that is by honing wind chakra with the chakra-attuned kunai I gave him. Thankfully they missed, but it would leave a heck of a scar once I closed the wound, especially considering the couple centimeters of depth. Well, I can't blame him now, can I? I was being kind of a douchebag, wincing at every slight impact or jolt. I silently bounded deeper into the tree line until I found a wide enough branch to heal myself. Summoning a shadow clone, I lay down against the trunk and ordered the clone to apply the mystical palm jutsu on the wound. It won't require too much chakra to heal the flesh wounds, but I still had to be careful. Naruto will realize soon that I placed a genjutsu, so this should only last a couple minutes. It won't heal completely, but it should be quite minor by the end. I exhaled and relaxed, closing my eyes and focusing on my inner self. The world slipped away to a pond that I kneeled upon, looking at the reflections. As usual, bloody kunais, blood, bones, skeletons, weapons, and pockmarks where powerful jutsu had struck littered the bottom of the pond. However, a hopeful blue-white glow seemed to expand ever so slowly in the center that caused the war-scarred bottom to heal over with reeds, flowers, frogs, and koi. Interesting, it seems that all the evil deeds and dark parts of my conscience have been disappearing the more time I spend with people like Naruto. I thought, relieved that I may in fact be able to leave my past behind. Almost immediately, Reality cut through my mindscape as my clone dispelled. Blinking, I sat up gingerly, keeping myself from reacting too quickly and risk reopening my wound. I had underestimated the amount of chakra that I needed to fully heal myself. The muscle had knitted underneath and the skin had grown over, but there was a little bruising, meaning that the wound was sensitive. Sighing, I grabbed my jacket, threw it over myself, and made my way towards the clearing. On guard. When I arrived there, however, I saw the most unexpected sight ever. Naruto was kneeling over something scratched in the dirt. Well, it was more elegant than a scratch and seemed to form something, but it was indistinct from the 30-meter distance between me and the boy. Silently, I stalked over to Naruto, whose hair shone like the golden flame of the sun. The sun was already setting, and I needed to get us back to camp. "Hey Naruto, what's up?" I asked, kneeling across from him to look my student in the eye. Emotion flooded the blue orb, reflecting perfect waves breaking on the shore, while his red Sharingan revealed a sort of long-lost love towards the subject of the picture. "They were my father and my mother, Itachi," Naruto mumbled, barely loud enough for me here. In fact, the message eluded me when he first spoke. When he asked again, he indicated the picture before him. The familiar face of a young man with yellow hair like Naruto's stared back at me with a big grin, one that I saw when he came with Kushina to my house 3 months before the QB was released. The man was the complete opposite of my father around me. He was kind, considerate, funny, outgoing, and eager to converse or have fun. I could never forget the yellow flash, Yondiame and hero of Konoha, Minato Namikaze. "Yes," I whispered, taken aback by Naruto's lifelike impression of him. He was holding a young woman close to him, loud red hair and a confidence in her eye that could only stand for Kushina. Of course, he figured the Jinjutsu out. The reason it took him forever was that he knew it was one of my memories reflected into a lifelike Jinjutsu. Then he wanted to create a photo-perfect picture on the ground using a Jinjutsu to show color in order to capture his parents. Naruto nodded, getting up just as the last of the sun set below the horizon. "Thank you, Itachi, for replaying the memory. I owe you one," Naruto said, patting me on the back. He was about to toast something else when the loudest roar echoed around the clearing. I shot up on my feet, alert and ready to face whatever made that noise. "Oh man, Itachi, I'm starved at the moment. Can we go get some ramen?" I chuckled at my reaction, having forgotten that Kakashi told me about Naruto's insane appetite for ramen. "All right, Naruto, but just this once. After tonight, you're going to eat a much more healthy diet, okay? That is if you don't want to stunt your physical, mental, and muscle growth." Naruto's eyes bored into mine with absolute hatred of the last part, though it didn't last in the face of the possibility of eating his favorite food. Almost immediately, Naruto shot down the path back to the Leaf Village faster than a torpedo. Not quite ready to reveal who I was, I put in one green contact in the right and slipped a red bandana with ravens over my face. Konoha was not ready to see their supposedly dead prodigy. "Not you too, Itachi," Naruto exclaimed when seeing my covered mouth and nose. The pouting that implied me being similar to Kakashi cracked me up so badly. "There is nothing wrong with your face. Anyway, it's not like you did anything bad." I smiled to fake my innocence. "You were right, Naruto. but people still think I am dead, and there are those who want to hunt me down and kill me. I appreciate your concern, though. By the way, don't go stuffing yourself too much with ramen tonight. I can only afford so much. Naruto. I am supposed to be dead, and the only way to get cash is bounty hunting and doing shady jobs where no one asks questions. As we traveled down the road, Naruto kept pestering me with questions about the past and his family, things that I would have rather never heard about. There was one thing that didn't match up, however. Why would Sasuke give Naruto a Sharingan? He didn't seem like the type to do that, since he was so obsessed with power. Only one reason remains for Naruto's Sharingan, I thought with a bitter taste in my mouth. A few hours later, it took us a little while, but by the time the moon had fully risen, we had made it atop the Hokage monument. The sight of the small clusters of people walking around on the warm summer night reminded me of the last few months of my life before the fateful night. Every day was the sweetest one I had experienced, as my crush had returned the same feelings I had for her. I loved her dearly, yet my family couldn't come to grasp the idea of me loving a girl outside the Uchiha clan, much less a civilian. No, instead they had to give me shit every day about it, so that even when I was with her towards the end, it never felt right, so I would mess things up. Oh, and then they even had to go play matchmaker. Pops cracked in the air as I clenched my fists and grit my teeth to keep control of my temper. However, I felt a strange pang in my heart, a longing for something someone I had not encountered in years. And it was partly the reason I wanted to go to Ichiraku's. She always was kind, understanding, and she was, well, very pretty. Yes, many girls had a crush on me in the academy and as a genin and chunin, but before I met her, I had eyes for no one. In reality, the only people that could open my heart seemed to be my brother and her, as she saw me as Itachi, not the Uchiha prodigy or anything of the sort, only who I really was. I didn't notice it at first, but as I reminisced on my love, I had begun to quicken my pace from a stroll to a jog and up to a run. I chuckled to myself, excited about the prospect of seeing her once more. I had seen her, but only talked to her a couple, and she didn't seem to recognize me when we did. Also, 2 years had passed since the last time I'd seen her, and this time I had every intention of letting her know who I was. I couldn't help but grin at the prospect, perhaps too full of myself, and not considering the proper or most common reaction to such a situation. In the midst of all this, I had started to drag Naruto towards the ramen stand as he was confused, shocked, and probably happy at the prospect of my excitement. However, it must be for very different reasons, I soon realized as he began rattling off questions about my favorite type of ramen. I decided to play along with Naruto. Better not squander the Jinchuriki's dreams. Yes, Naruto. I have frequented Ichiraku's quite a few times. I love the ramen, especially because they balance the meat, broth, noodles, and vegetables quite nicely. In addition, there is this essence of love in the ramen that is similar to when it is cooked by family or friends, making it all the more enjoyable. I replied to the joyful Naruto, who probably was scheming about what he would order. Itachi, why are you so excited anyway? And please try not use that smile so much. It kind of freaks me out. You look like a more manly Sasuke that is happy, which is just wrong, even creepy, Naruto said, wide-eyed and clearly disturbed. I smirked at that, making Naruto relax a little. Good thing you dash. Hey, wait a minute. The only reason you look like Sasuke would be, are you crazy, Itachi? Do you want to be spotted because right now people, one, won't be too hot to see him, and two, think you are dead? The blonde shinobi was unable to keep himself quiet, much to my dismay. Rather, he had dug his heels into the ground, stopping us firmly, and had shouted at half the top of his lungs the news. I swear one day he will get himself killed from it. Maybe even by my own hands, I thought. Naruto? Is that you? A platinum blonde-haired girl said, appearing around the corner in front of us. I, by reflex, activated a Jinjutsu to place a couple scars on my face, make it about as tan as Naruto's, and added a short mustache and chin beard along with a ponytail. Oh, I didn't expect to see you here, Naruto said with a grin, rubbing the back of his head. Does he have a crush on her? I thought he had one on Sakura. Almost as if triggered by his words, Ino walked up to Naruto with a kind, smiling face which I didn't take as a good sign. Instantly, I teleported on the first floor of the building next to us and watched the scene unfold. Naruto was a little confused when he saw me disappear, and almost instantly Ino, seeing her chance, grabbed Naruto in a headlock. Why aren't you in the hospital, Dope? Are you out of your mind and want to hurt yourself? You had a hole in your shoulder when you came in. Well, clearly she cares about him, albeit seeming like an older sister at the moment. Naruto, on the other hand, was completely rattled, and his face had started turning blue from the lack of oxygen reaching his brain. As Ino seemed to show no signs of release, and Naruto was dangerously close to suffocating, I saw no other option. I appeared next to her and cleared my throat. Ino-chan, do you mind loosening your grip on Naruto? I stated with a concerned expression. Ino shrugged and let Naruto go, who instantly collapsed on the ground, gasping like a fish letting in air. If Ino was at all disturbed by this, she gave no indication of it. Who are you anyway? And how do you know Naruto? Ino asked, suspicious and incredulous, suggesting that she would have remembered me if she has ever seen me. Well, there wasn't a big reason to give a complete lie to her. Oh, how rude of me. Forgive me for not introducing myself first. I go by many names, but most people call me Chi. I am Naruto's sensei, taking over from Kakashi to oversee his training. He thinks I can greatly improve Naruto's chakra control and evolve his jutsus. I used to be in the Umbu until a little while back when I retired from my position. Now I just tutor Genin, Chunin, and some lower level Jonin in Taijutsu, Jinjutsu, and Ninjutsu. I ranted politely, giving her enough information to chew on. I even had papers saying so. My cover was pretty well constructed, and it was all true anyways. Ino raised an eyebrow in an impressed sort of way. Interesting. Well, would you mind training me as well, Chi? Ino asked after a few moments of silence. She extended a hand, and I shook it, telling her that I could begin training her in 2 days, and told her to meet me on the fourth head at 3 in the afternoon for her first lesson. She looked at me and then at Naruto, who had passed out. Ino-chan, do you mind helping him out, please? He got pretty banged up today, and seeing that you were his friend and all, I think I can trust you to bring him to the hospital. I have an important meeting to attend to. I smiled and winked at her, so she got the intended message, and she rewarded me with a thank you look on her face. I said farewell and jogged the last 3 blocks to the ramen stand, seeing that I had only a half hour until Ichiraka's closed. The fumes of delicious ramen wafted from the kitchen, tantalizing my taste buds and almost carrying me through the entrance of the door at double pace. Still with my wits about me, I dispelled the scars and made the mustache and beard fade away. I wanted Iam to see who I really was for the wrist time years. Ayama-chan, I greeted when I saw her, waving and remembering to wear a similar outfit to the last time I picked up Iam from her home. I desperately needed her to see me and acknowledge me. I didn't get the reaction the anticipated for. Iam dropped the bowl she was holding as she saw me and heard my voice, wide-eyed in surprise. Iam's eyes were shocked and dazed, as if she were hallucinating or in a dream. Before the bowl could hit the ground, I dashed next to her, scooped it out of the air, twirled it, and placed it in the sink standing next to her. Her long, silky brown hair smelled of honey and almonds as well as ramen, some of my favorite smells of the universe. She remained silent and paralyzed for the next few moments, reeling in shock of seeing me after years of believing I was dead. "So how have you been?" I asked, coolly, washing the dirty in the sink. No one was here at the moment, so it was safe to talk. Or at least I assumed. "How have I been? Are you kidding me? Itachi, I thought you were dead. For the past 5 years, I have mourned you, then you show up out of thin air, and all you can say is, 'How have you been?'" I am snapped, flames and sorrow licking her large, pretty caramel eyes. Even in anger, she looked amazing in my eyes. She blushed as she saw me stare intently into her eyes, as if committing as much of her blossomed self to memory. "Stop looking at me like that. Itachi-kun, you're making me nervous." To tease her a little, I replied, "But I love it when blush, I am Chan." She blushed even more and gave me a forceful and playful shove to my shoulder, causing me to chuckle as she barely succeeded to making me flinch. "Damn, you really have grown, haven't you? You aren't that thin 13-year-old ANBU captain I fell in love with before. You've definitely been working out, Itachi. Was it by chance for me?" I am teased, making me blush this time. The truthful answer was yes. I began working out recently to impress Iam when I would next see her. It only took her a second to analyze what the blush meant. "You never forgot about me, did you, Itachi? Even though it would have been safer for you." I stiffened at Iam's soft words and voice filled with remorse. "Whoa, Itachi-kun, I only meant that the people who are after the Uchiha may be in the village for all anyone knows. That's all." Just as she finished those words, she leaned in and stole a kiss from my lips, letting it linger for a bit before pulling away. Those few moments felt like utter heaven, sweet like honey and cinnamon, and soft and warm like dawn's gentle rays of sun. "I love you. I am Chan. I always have and always will, like when I told you on our last date before it happened." I whispered in her ear, recalling the memory of sitting on the first head to watch the fireworks on the New Year. We kissed each other hungrily that night and somehow ended up sleeping in the same sleeping bag. If the way we woke up was any indication, we had decided to sleep and spend the night in each other's arms, topless. I smiled at the memory. We were in deep love with one another. Iam looked down, smiling, her face cherry red in embarrassment. "Itachi-kun, did you that night we fell asleep before doing what we said we would, right?" "I am Chan. Are you sure about that? Because I don't remember that too well." I replied to the perfectly curved brunette who reached my height. There hadn't been a day that I remember blushing as much as then. Of course you didn't, Itachi-kun, because you're the one who pretty much fell asleep in my arms. At first, I thought you fainted, but when I heard your steady sleeping breath, I knew you passed out from exhaustion. You had a rough day, protecting Naruto from a mob of assholes, and then tracking down a missing Nin and a bunch of bandits. I am replied, amused as she remembered everything. We made quite the strange couple, the daughter of a ramen chef and the heir to the Uchiha clan. And anyways, I mean, if you only could, start where we left off, I replied, nervous, brushing the back of my head with my right hand. The last part came out with a little awkward stuttering. Who knew that this was the weakness of the shinobi who was an ANBU captain at 13 years of age? Under different circumstances, I would have hugged Ayam to me and kissed her with all the passion I could muster. However, since she hadn't said she loved me as well, I didn't know her standing, so was extremely nervous. Ah, Itachi-kun, you are adorable when you are nervous like that. Come here, Ayam replied with a gyre-pitched voice, giggling a little. Instantly, she wrapped her arms around me and kissed me again, but this time, rather than letting go, she pushed against me, opening her mouth, letting my tongue slide into her mouth. I felt as if I was in paradise, warm and fuzzy on the outside and the inside. Inhaling Ayam's scent, feeling her smooth, soft skin against mine. I love you, Itachi, she moaned softly while kissing. I just nodded. It only felt like seconds, but I knew it was much longer as we broke away, smiling. Ayam's eyes reflected nothing but love and affection. All the hurt was gone, as if I had sucked it out and replaced it with happiness. Realizing Naruto was in the hospital and that he would be hungry, I asked the inevitable, "Hey, Ayam-chan, do you have 5 bowls of ramen to take out? 2 for me and 3 for Naruto. I am training him now, and he is in the hospital at the moment." I completely forgot that I promised to get him ramen because I was thinking about coming to see you. I asked Ayam, who nodded in response, pulling out 5 piping hot bowls of ramen. I had a feeling someone would come in and ask for ramen. "These are on the house, Itachi, okay? I'll see you tomorrow, all right?" Ayam said, more stating the last part because she already knew my answer. Make sure Naruto becomes the best. He was one of my best friends when you were away, love. The seriousness in Ayam's eyes made me understand the gravity of the situation. She wanted to see one of the people she cared for achieve their dreams, and with what Naruto had gone through, he deserved it. Understand, Ayam, good night, love you, I said before giving her a peck on the cheek and making my way back to the place this all started. Except this time, I came prepared. Where am I? I groaned, head spinning as I opened my eyes. My throat raged violently, so it came out more as a dry croak than anything else. My muscles were less sore, but some of them felt as if they were about to cramp up. Almost immediately, my stomach growled, protesting for food. Naruto, a souhait angélique, vuoi responder. The voice sounded like Ino's, no question, but she never used such a tone around me. Only around Sasuke. My doubts, however, turned out to be false as Sky Blue looked at my face and neck in concern while I sat up against the comfortable bed. Beats a sleeping bag on a tree branch. Also, it was actually warm. Thoga, there was the annoying and irritating smell of antiseptic wipes and cleaning alcohol. Why am I in the hospital, Ino? I asked, my voice ever so slowly removing the croak. The platinum blonde slumped her shoulders utterly defeated and deflated, though she looked admittedly very pretty in that gold-white dress. Was it blue and black that hugged her features and cut off at the knee? A pair of high-top combat boots rose up just a couple inches short of the knee. Well, yesterday I asked Sakura and Shikamaru where you were because I heard rumors that you were in the hospital and I wanted to know. They pointed me to the room that you are in now, but when I arrived, you disappeared. I waited for 6 hours and still you were gone. I got extremely worried whether you were okay, and the nurses and doctors were surprised that you weren't here because you hadn't checked out. The next day I came back and still didn't find you, and that got me worried sick. I started wandering around all over the village until I found Kakashi training Sakura and this new kid, Sai. He told me he thought you were in the hospital, but was not surprised when I told him you weren't. T there. Ino clearly was worried sick, but was it really because of me? I'm sorry, Ino. I was training with Dash. I started, reluctant, but not wanting her to be worried. Chi-sensei, I know. He seems really cool and skilled. He used to be part of the ANBU and helped train Kakashi. Ino interrupted, smiling a little, probably due to someone she just met telling the truth. Yeah, he's really cool. So that is what Itachi calls himself. Interesting to know. You know, Naruto, he's going to start training me as well if that is alert with you. Ino said, her cheeks getting a little pink. It looked like she was getting the same sickness as Hinata at the moment. That's curious. Sure, I don't mind really, I replied with a smile, happy to have someone else to train with. And from what I had heard, Ino has more chakra than Sakura, so would more helpful. Besides, Itachi only looked like he had large reserves. He just has amazing chakra control, so he doesn't lose any when he needs it. Thank you. Sorry about the neck. Naruto, I kind of headlocked you a little too tight. I was just angry, Ino replied with a sweet smile. For some reason, I immediately fell in love with that smile. Ino started to turn around before she stiffened, as if she just remembered something. Naruto, before I forget, here you go. Ino turned around holding a small bouquet of bush clovers. I hope you get better soon. Naruto, Ino said, putting them beside me. Their aroma, one of my favorite smells next to ramen. Thank you, Ino. These are my favorite. I replied with a grin, happy to that someone was acknowledging me besides Kakashi, Itachi, Shikamaru, Gaara, and Choji. Sakura did sometimes, just not as often, and when she didn't, she was kind of jerk. Ino blushed bright red and waved as she started out of the door. Just before she reached it. However, I could smell the familiar scent of Ichiraku's ramen wafting from the hallway. And almost immediately, the door burst open to reveal a tall ninja that looked like Itachi, except for a couple scars and a chin beard and mustache. Order up, Naruto, Itachi said with a big grin on his face, holding 6 bowls of ramen. My mouth began to water seeing the food. Oh, hey, Ino-chan. Nice seeing you here. I didn't expect seeing anyone here, but seeing that I have an extra bowl of ramen, would you like to join us? Itachi, disguised as Chi, asked kindly. He acted kind of like me in a few ways. Always smiling, excited, and pumped. Oh, are you sure you want me to be here? Ino asked, surprised and slightly confused by Itachi's entrance holding a bunch of ramen. I haven't really had some in a while, and only if it's okay with you and Naruto. Ino suddenly seemed a little shy, which wasn't really like her. She was looking at her boots and twirling a lock of hair. It's totally fine. Plus, I think Naruto will need the calm apnea. Right, Naruto? Itachi asked. I confirmed, happy to have people to be around and talk to. It had been a hard week of training and thinking of what ifs. I just needed to cool down real bad. The raven-haired Leafneen plopped down on an armchair, handing me 3 bowls, handing Ino a bowl, and starting on one of his own. Ino, seeing that no seat was left, sat on the other bed and began eating. At first, I thought she wasn't going to finish it, but by the time I had finished my 3 bowls and felt satisfied, Ino had devoured it. Itachi had finished about the same time. Wow, Ichiraku's ramen is really good. The pork, beef, and vegetables are cooked to perfection and there aren't too many spices either. Hangsti Sensi, Ino said, looking both full and happy. I grinned at her comment. Itachi, on the other hand, had a pensive look on his face as if something were bothering him. Well, do you taste any of the family love that Chan put in it? Itachi asked Ino, clearly worried about the answer. Huh, I guess so. Ino replied after a couple moments of deep thought, thinking about his comment and tossing in her mouth. Yeah, Ido. By the way, Chi-sensei, do you have a crush for Iam? My eyes almost popped out of my head upon hearing that. The missing Neen having a crush on the ramen chef's daughter. I have nothing to complain about, but that just seemed odd for Itachi. When I was little, I did have a crush on Iam, but this was news. I heard she was still mourning the death of her boyfriend. Before I could ask Sensei anything, he replied, No, Ino, why would you say that? His hand rubbed the back of his head, smiling, his cheeks growing red. Oh my fucking Cammy. Ino is right, even I can see that. I thought, sweat dropping at the horrible lie. He even had a bruise that suspiciously resembled a hickey on the neck. You, Chikuin, when it comes to lying about girlfriends or crushes, suck. A sweet, familiar voice came from the door. Itachi jumped off the seat, utterly surprised by it. Only one person could possibly do that. Hi, I am San. To what do I owe the pleasure? I said, bowing a little as she walked into the room. I am covered her mouth as she giggled as usual. She loved it when I did that because she thought it was cute and we were friends. Nothing, Naruto. I was just coming to check on you because Chikuin said you would be here and that you were hurt. Iam gave me a kind, worried smile. I wanted to see if you were all right and if you would eat the ramen I made this time. Sorry that my father couldn't be here or make some for you. He is on a business trip and I've been holding down the fort for him these past couple days. Iam, you made these? I asked, incredulous and surprised at the brunette's comment. She nodded, anticipating the criticism. This is better than Twechi's ramen. How did you do it? Tell me everything. Iam smiled at the pleasant surprise. She looked at Itachi for confirmation, who gave her a big grin and a nod. Ino just looked on, captivated by Iam for some reason. Ino interrupted a little shyly. That dress looks really beautiful. I was wondering where you got it, if you would tell me. Ino blushed a little, embarrassed by the comment, but Iam just smiled back and answered that she got it from the Wind Country when her teenage sweetheart had come back from mission there and gave it to her as a birthday gift. Soon the conversation devolved to me and Itachi talking about different jutsus and ramen, while Iam and Ino talked about fashion and guys. Time flew by because by the time Itachi and I finished talking, Iam left and Ino joined in our ninjutsu conversation, and when I checked the clock again, it was 1 o'clock a.m. Ino let out a yawn and lied down on the bed next to mine. She seemed completely exhausted as her eyelids started to fall over her eyes, and she yawned. The sound of her soft, rhythmic breaths brought me to sleep instantly, almost as fast as her. Rather than fight it, afraid I may have nightmares, I welcomed it. Rise and shine, Ino and Naruto, a stern though kind voice said as a hand gently shook my shoulder. The skin on the hand was icy cool, though, jetting me from my sleep instantly though I fought it. My eyes fluttered open to see the open curtains of the window, where the sun was up at about 10 a.m. Standing above me was a long, raven-haired ninja wearing nothing but a black t-shirt with a white raven and night camo cargo combat pants and boots. Twin scars and chiseled features with a mustache and chin beard made the 20-year-old Jonin look roguishly handsome. He gave me a smile and motioned me to get up and help him wake Naruto. The blonde ninja looked peaceful and adorable as he slept, completely relaxed as he took long, controlled breaths in his sleep with closed eyes. He still wore his clothes from last, reminding me that I had fallen asleep in the hospital. My parents might worry, but probably not because I told them I would be training. I pushed the adorable teenage ninja that loved to pull pranks. Sure, sometimes he was rude and he acted like a clown, but he was Konoha's clown, my clown. I smiled before pushing him a little and telling him to wake up. Almost instantly, Naruto sat up, whipping his head side to side before meeting my eyes. He raised an eyebrow at first, the gears turning in his head before remembering last night. "Morning, Ino." "Morning, Chi," Naruto said with a burst of energy, stretching out his arms and legs before reinserting his feet in his boots. "Hey, Naruto, show Ino the way to the training ground and see if she could do that jutsu, will ya?" Chi asked, hurrying to pack up all his stuff. Apparently, he had fallen asleep taking inventory of his gear and his notes, scrolls, and seals, ending up stuffing everything in his backpack without organization whatsoever. "Wait, Chi-sensei, where are you going?" I asked, shocked by his hurrying to leave. Yes, he may have important matters, but isn't it also a priority to teach your students? I thought. However, before he could give an answer, he disappeared. Probably off to get some more supplies and such. Maybe saying bye to I-am-san. "What do you think?" Naruto mumbled, bummed a little that our sensei ditched us. He hopped onto the white window ledge and motioned for me to follow. His eyes became impatient, and he started tapping his feet when I stood there. "Naruto, we should head by my house first. My mom will pack some breakfast, and I need to get all my gear. Probably a sleeping bag, too." I mumbled, embarrassed that I was unprepared to train. First impressions count. Naruto just shrugged, telling me that it was on the way. Otherwise, he probably would have protested. In any case, he owes me. I had to drag and use multiple replacement jutsus to get him here. I decided I'd let it rest. I jumped from the window atop the roof of the next building over, following Naruto's lead to get there the fast way. It took no more than 3 minutes, but we finally arrived home. I grabbed the key under the mat and unlocked the front door, knowing that my parents weren't home. As I made my way to the staircase, I noticed 2 things. One, that my mother had packed what seemed to be 10 pounds of food in a bag, and second, that Naruto had stopped following me. "Come in, Naruto, it's all right. I'm going to take a shower. In the meantime, feel free to help me pack my gear and stock yourself up on sealing paper and kunai and whatever else you need," I stated, forgetting that Naruto hadn't really been invited to other people's home. I gave him a reassuring smile as he came in tentatively. The respect and caution he showed was pretty cute. I had to forcefully keep myself from ING. Quickly, I bounded up the stairs to my room, telling Naruto where to find his stuff and not to worry because my parents didn't care about their kunai and other armaments. As soon as I closed myself in my room, I stripped out of my clothes and got in the shower, blasting the heat to loosen up my muscles for the oncoming day. After scrubbing myself with soap, shampoo, and conditioner, I just let the water cascade around me. We had a few hours before we had to arrive, according to Chi-sensei. Instantly, thoughts about Naruto shot into my mind. The real reason why I wanted to be stronger and more powerful was to impress Naruto. But do you really like him, or is it only because Sasuke left and basically showed no interest in you whatsoever? I thought. Now that was the ultimate question to which I still trying to find the answer to. Maybe it was partly because Sasuke began growing even more distant and serious, even dark, and since he left that I realized that did love Naruto. After all, he would give his life to save his friends, his village, and those he loves even if they betray him or don't show kindness. And he is fun to be around, always talking, making jokes, and never giving up no matter how hard the obstacle. The latter is what made him so attractive. It seemed only at most 5 minutes had gone by, but I heard an urgent knock on the door. While I didn't react, the fist rapped on the wood again, louder this time. "What is it?" I groaned, knowing it was Naruto, while turning off the shower, putting a robe on, and using my chakra to repel the water on my skin. Ino, I don't want to rush you or anything, but it's been like 40 minutes, and I already packed everything and got the seals and the borrowed kunai ready. Naruto moaned, a little tentative due to embarrassment, but the message got through. I grinned, concocting a plan full of mischief. On top of my undergarments, I put on my stomach-exposing, short sleeveless purple vest and a purple skirt that went just at mid-thigh length. I quickly brushed my hair, clipping it so that a bang partially covered the right part of my face, though leaving my hair down otherwise. I redonned the robe and opened the door quickly. The look on Naruto's face was priceless, because he couldn't see a single piece of cloth on me except the loosely hanging bathrobe. He blushed and turned around, but not before I caught his gaping mouth. I dropped the robe loud enough for him to hear, making him jump. "Aino, what are you doing?" Naruto stuttered, completely embarrassed and taken aback. Before he could do anything, I swiftly turned him around, making him look at me in utter confusion. "How did you get dressed so fast?" Naruto asked. I giggled. "I was only teasing you, Naruto-kun. I had these clothes under the robe. Anyway, looks like what Sakura said is wrong." I knew that as I said it. I had Naruto hooked on every word I was saying. I didn't say anything for a little while, just humming away as I put my medical ninja gear purse over my shoulder and strapped on my backpack. The air in the room became stifling as Naruto's anticipation and curiosity enveloped the atmosphere. All right, Naruto, I'll tell you what she told me. Sakura said that you were, Hichim, what is the nicest way to put it? A horny, pervy teenage boy, I replied, drawing the words out to create as much tension as possible. It was kind of fun seeing Naruto get riled up and seeing how far his reactions would go. "Oh, did she?" Naruto said as if it was news, slightly pensive. Knowing my blonde ninja friend, however, It meant that he had been guilty of it in the past. In other words, you used to be Naruto-kun? I asked rhetorically. It's all right, I understand. Hormones and everything are hard to control at first. Also, you've outgrown it. Naruto blushed at the former only to be taken aback by the latter, probably questioning my sanity. Thing is, takes one to know one, but I wasn't about to admit that to Naruto. Frankly, it was too embarrassing. Naruto laughed it off a little at first, scratching the back of his head. Though tentative and half-hearted at first, he burst out laughing melodiously. It took me a moment to realize that I rarely heard my blonde friend's real laugh. Its melodic, honeyed tone stunned me, for I had never heard such a voice like this, melting my heart with an odd golden flame that reminded me of joy and desire. All right, Ino, ready to go? Naruto asked with a big smile plastered on his face as his laughter died. Again, I noticed that he had hid behind a mask of fake happiness, and that before now, Naruto-kun rarely felt true happiness. I smiled at the thought that I could make the blonde feel happiness, almost immediately feeling blood warming my cheeks. Naruto hopped on the windowsill with the breakfast pack slung over his left shoulder. By the way, Ino, thanks for making me laugh. I haven't felt remotely happy like that in a while, Naruto whispered, giving me a thumbs up and a semi-happy and sad smile. This time my cheeks burned rose red at the compliment. Quickly, I hid my face abashed. Y or W welcome. In Naruto, I stuttered. Great. Ino, yo sound like Hinata now. Naruto cocked his head ever so slightly, making my heart race, hoping that he couldn't connect the dots. Are you all right, Ino? Naruto asked, concern washing those beautiful cerulean blue orbs. I nodded, not trusting my words at the moment, conflicted. Your face was all red, so it looked like you had a fever was all. Naruto smiled, happy to see that I was indeed okay. In a sudden blur, the hyperactive ninja leaped onto the next building, waving me over with a grin and small glint of mischief in his eye. This sent shivers of excitement down my body. Meanwhile, elsewhere in Konoha, after having given a message to Ino and Naruto and left them to themselves, I strolled down the road with my usual disguise, gazing at the carefree, fluffy clouds in the deep blue sky. The birds chirped melodically, though it was close to noon. Jasmine, honeysuckle, bush clover, and other flowers released their sweet, soothing smells that helped calm the mind while the slight warm breeze caressed the world. I took a deep breath and took it all in, longing to remain in Konoha, the place I loved. The faint, jubilant shouting of children playing in the street, laughter of adult shinobi reminiscing on the good old days, chatter of women talking excitedly about news, not gossip news, and of course the thrumming of chakra as Jinin teams trained. It felt good to be back, albeit not as myself, and brought back profound memories so filled with nostalgia that I had to force myself to hold back the tears as I strolled to Iam's house. I am Chan. I can't believe I revealed myself to you and that you waited for me on the hope that I was alive. I never forgot about you, I am. I just couldn't face the village again and the memories it holds. I thought to myself, praying that she would in time fully forgive me. Though she told me that she did, I knew that I am was telling the complete truth. It would take a while before things could go back to normal. After 15 minutes, I finally arrived at her house. My palms were sticky with sweat and my stomach somersaulted like a gymnast nervousness catching me off guard. Now that she had a night and a morning to think about this clearly, I may have decided against me. I couldn't blame her if that was the case, but still my heart wrenched at the very thought of it. No, Itachi, you can't think like this. She said she loved you last night. There is no reason to be afraid. Taking a deep breath, I wrapped my knuckles against the blue wooden door of the quaint whitewashed single-story house. A faint scuffle of someone fumbling with things before hurried clicks of the unlocking door. A blue blur lunged at me, wrapping me in the tightest of hugs ever. I hugged back, though short of breath as the oxygen was squeezed out of my lungs. Just as spots began to form, the caramel-haired, beautiful young woman let go, allowing me to take the breath I desperately needed. You finally came, Itachi-kun. I've been waiting for you for well over an hour, but it's all right. I'm just glad you're here, love. I whispered, her warm breath tickling my ear, a suggestive tone at the last words making me blush. Of course I'd come. I love you more than all the world, I whispered back, making her blush. Before I could stop myself, I gently guided Iam's face to mine and wrapped my lips around hers, soft yet burning with passion. Sweet, soft lips met mine, fireworks of desire blazing. I pressed Iam closer to myself, my hands caressing her back. Iam's soft, tender hands ran through my long raven hair, moaning slightly against my lips. Stumbling through the doorway, we entwined ourselves, sharing the same hot breath. Savoring every kiss, I pecked my way down her jaw, along her neck, and to her collarbone before making my way up. Iam moaned softly before turning me around and pressing me against the wall, sliding her tongue past my open lips, pressing herself completely flat against me. This time I moaned, closing my eyes to savor it. It felt like heaven as liquid gold spread along my insides. I love so much Chan. I half whispered, half moaned as she bit my neck in a few different spots. My heart raced, and I followed suit, letting Iam take the lead. She had always been the more aggressive one in the relationship. Just as I want to kiss her again, she gave me the biggest, love-filled smile I had ever seen on her face. Itachi-kun, I want to tell you something, Iam replied, between kisses, the sun reflecting off her breathtaking eyes so their rich chestnut color gleamed. I mumbled a barely audible yes as I kissed her again. Again, the addictive burning sensation while we maintained the kiss. I love you more, she whispered after taking a breath. I threw my head backwards, forgetting that a wall was behind me, and let out a laugh, despite the jolt of pain from smacking my head against the wall. No, I love you more, I added, still laughing, remembering similar playful fights about who loved the other more and how much. I love you more than having the ability to eat a never-ending supply of your and your father's ramen. This was saying a lot because I love their ramen more than most things in existence. Oh yeah, while I love you more than Ino obsesses over her looks, Iam replied, knowing she got me on that. Despite my previous reply, she pretty much had me stumped at the moment. That is before I remembered Naruto. I love you with more intensity and drive that Naruto has to become Hokage and protect the village, I retorted, sticking my tongue out at Iam when she gave me a frustrated expression. She usually won the battles. This time, though, I had her stumped. Well, If you love me so much, why don't you propose to me? I am asked, quickly and in the same tone. In fact, I'm going to propose to you, I said with a winning smirk before I registered the breathless and amazed look on her face. Using her reaction to guide my thoughts, I realized what I had said, shooting blood up my cheeks, so I looked like a cherry tomato. Yeah, yeah. So, I spoiled my plan, I am? I was planning to do it in about 2 months when I was sure about your feelings. I rubbed the back of my head, embarrassed and grinning madly. I am looked at me wide-eyed at the sudden revelation and turn of events. She blushed and hid her face behind her long hair in a horrible attempt to hide it. Itachi-kun, do you really mean it? I am asked, hopeful yet abashed ever so softly. I am sounded so much like Hinata when she talked with Naruto. I couldn't help but grin, seemingly transported to the day that I first confessed my love for her when I took her to the Hokage monument. Her eyes held that same passion as they did those few years ago. Remember what I told you the day that I first told you I love you? I am Chan. I asked. She nodded slowly, not seeing the point. Well, the answer is the same, I said just as I kissed her on the lips. Almost instantly, she collapsed in my arms with a sigh. Shit, Itachi, you had go and make I am faint. Now people are going to be asking questions when I take her to the hospital. And I shouldn't leave her alone either. Huffing out a sigh, I put on the Jinjutsu, rushed to the hospital darting from roof to tiled roof. All I could think about is that I dug my grave in terms of a good impression with my students. I will be late for the first time in history, and probably not the last. Noon. Hi Ino. Hi Naruto. I greeted from behind as I appeared in a puff of clouds. They were sitting down, chatting, and subconsciously holding hand, it would seem, as they looked at their hands in alarm when they realized it. Well, shit. The blonde ninjas are too dense to understand they were cut out for one another. I mean, they seemed to be having quite a peaceful moment, I thought to myself. Sorry for not being entirely prepared. Sensei, we thought you would arrive a little later, Naruto apologized. The truth in those words would be evident to anyone who has been trained by Kakashi or a close friend, as they tended to be late, especially the former. It had been a pain in the ass when we worked together on big missions, and when I had been training him with his Sharingan. No problem, you guys, I had to bring Iam to the hospital. I replied with a sad smile to show that I wasn't in the greatest of moods and I was fine with them not being fully prepared. What? Is she going to be all right, Chi-sensei? Ino gasped. Her white face paled even more, if at all possible. Her brows furrowed in additional concern. Naruto showed similar signs of distress and concern. Crap, they think it's worse than it is. Think of something quick. I thought frantically as sweat trickled down my back. My heart raced quickly, and I had to force my pupils to not dilate. She passed out due to lack of sleep. She wanted to talk to me, but seemed faint when I arrived and had dark circles around her eyes. I think she hasn't been getting any sleep for a few days, hiding it with makeup. I spat out before another second could go by. A moment of pensive silence had me worried for a moment. They shouldn't know I am well enough to know that she doesn't wear any makeup. Huh. Makes sense, Naruto commented almost to himself, stroking his chin with his right palm. And that is a major relief. I thought she was hurt badly or something. Naruto shivered at those words, probably imagining what could have happened before giving me a grin. Anyways, let's go, guys. We talk while we travel. With that, Naruto bounded across the slope of the mountain range towards our training area with an immense amount of speed, leaving a faint blur of orange and black behind him. When did Naruto get that fast, Chi-sensei? Ino asked, following me as I followed Naruto. I mean, even when he was using his chakra to speed himself up, this is a whole new level for him. Two simple factors, really: increase of chakra control and increase in physical training. I developed a new training method for Naruto that I think you may need as well. It will help build your chakra levels and control dramatically, as well as greatly increase your endurance, strength, speed, and reflexes. I summarized, making sure to keep pace with Ino in order for her to hear me, as we entered the forest and flew from branch to branch. The breeze generated from the movement caused my ponytail to wriggle like a snake, though it kept me from overheating in my black jacket, pants, and concealed armored vest. Sound good, Chi-sensei? I have a question, though. Your face reminds slightly of someone. Would you tell me if you're related to him or his clan? Ino asked, curiosity overlaying the barely detectable concern in her voice. It annoyed me that she would try to hide something, and even more so that she could still draw similarities. I really didn't need to launch into it right now, but Ino's piercing blue eyes pinned me. I only nodded, not trusting words on this one. Are you part of the Uchiha clan? Yes and no, I replied, making Ino groan in frustration. Her eyes quickly locked onto mine again and threatened major psychological pain. So I elaborated, I only share a small portion of Uchiha blood. Most of me is Sarutobi and civilian with Senju mixed in. I was brought up outside the village and moved here when I was still a child to train as a ninja. And I do have Sharingan, just so you know, but no one except Naruto and Kakashi know that. Ino almost stopped, forcing me to slow down, semi-freezing surprised by my answer. She clearly did not expect to be led on to a secret. Forget that yet another person had Sharingan. It took a couple minutes, but eventually Ino and I reached a pace faster than our original one to catch up with Naruto. We spent the rest of the time in silence with only a brief interruption to see if Ino had the stamina to continue or to tell me and Naruto to slow down. Naruto grumbled whenever the pace dropped, making me smile inside with the knowledge that he could handle more. It also amused me because we were making really good time. Just as the sun signaled it was 1 o'clock, I spotted the clearing up ahead. Of course, them seeing it was another matter entirely. Your training begins now, I told them, breaking the concentration-heavy silence. The two blonde teenagers looked at me with expectant eyes. It always had to happen this way, didn't it? Explanations were always necessary unless the others had tactical and analytical aptitude. I'll give you your objectives. You're supposed to find the clearing and obtain 2 scrolls each. Similar to the bell exercise, this will determine whether you are ready. I sighed, exasperated at their lack of initiative. Finishing topping on my chakra, I used a replacement jutsu before they could ask any questions. I had to check up on everything and add finishing touches to the clearing. As soon as I popped into the clearing, I did a few quick though analytical scans to make sure everyone and thing was positioned. Now what do we do? Ino exclaimed, frustrated that Itachi hadn't elaborated on what they were doing. Well, if my sense of direction is correct, the clearing should be about half a kilometer from us, I replied, understanding Ino's frustration at Itachi and his vague instructions. A whole week of training helped in analyzing, preparing, and planning for and in such situations. Unbeknownst to him, I had figured out one very important thing. By mixing expert tactics with some risky, surprising ones, opponents will be taken off guard and reveal their weaknesses. Well, get used to this. Itachi loves putting people into situations that train as many skills as possible, especially tactics and strategy. I added, focusing on scanning the surrounding area. Impatient, I crossed my fingers and channeled and divided my chakra shadow clone jutsu. Immediately a puff of smoke appeared and dissipated as 10 clones appeared on either side of me. Naruto, since when do you actually plan and use your brain before acting? Ino asked with tentative voice to not offend me, shooting me a curious look. I blushed at the comment in embarrassment before I added one last touch. 5 of the clones flipped a hand sign and transformed with the likeness of Ino. The real Ino gave me surprised look, quizzical about what I had done. Okay, punk, what have you done with Naruto? Ino growled, gripping my jacket with a fist, tightening the fabric around my throat. Talk. Now. Can't breathe, Ino. I gasped out, feeling the oxygen in my lungs being replaced by carbon dioxide. Reluctantly, the stormy-faced, blonde Kunoichi released her grip just enough for me to draw in a lung full of air. Look, I'm still the same Naruto. Itachi just changed my train of thought and trained me very well using a special technique is all, I replied with a reassuring smile. The fact that Ino thought I had changed quite a bit was disconcerting. It took Ino a few long moments, but she released me after inspecting every inch of my eyes, which made me extremely nervous. Okay, so I'm assuming you're going to use these clones to speed up scouting and as decoys to draw any trouble. I can understand using 6 pairs of people to gather as much intelligence as possible. It just seemed very odd of you to do so, Ino replied, hinting an apology. I just nodded in understanding. She didn't even know the half of it. By the way, don't be surprised when I tell you I mastered a few new ninjutsu, some basic jinjutsu, and perfected my taijutsu. Itachi gave me the equivalent of 100 weeks of training via shadow clones. I could teach you to use them, I think. I added the last part for some unknown reason, since I had enjoyed spending that time with Ino on the monument. She was actually very nice and quite smart. Ino just didn't let it on because she was afraid of seeming less attractive, which I refuted as nonsense, as if anything had only made her more attractive. Naruto, I swear if you don't haul ass and get with the mission, I will make you experience the worst nightmares ever. The familiar voice still made a small part of me afraid. Although we have been getting along better now that we worked in unison, as he had begun to realize that if he helped me, without taking me over, we would accelerate past the abilities of all others of my kind. Yeah. Nice to see you, Kurama, I thought, knowing that the 9-tailed fox was just being a tough guy, living in denial of the fact that he liked me. The fox just grunted before grinning when I told him what Itachi had done. The Uchiha thinks that trick will work against me. How foolish, Kurama chuckled evilly. He showed his teeth in a creepy grin that knocked more off balance than the previous comment. I'll give you a hint, Blondie. What have you been working on that is still your weakest asset? Jinjutsu. Itachi is using it to hide the clearing, I thought in response, knowing Kurama could hear me. However, where would I start, Kurama-san? I asked, using my politeness to placate him. Ino was right. I really had changed after Itachi forced me to study and train. Well, look for anything out of the ordinary that shouldn't be here. Also, if you sense a large amount of chakra in a place, you should be able to recognize it. In addition, tell the clones to activate their Sharingan and to investigate for a few moments before dissipating. Kurama's detailed plan left me utterly speechless. The fact that the fox could come up with a solution so quickly made me wonder whether I should use him as an advisor when I befriend him. You know, Kurama, you can be quite wily and intelligent. I thought back to him with a conspiratorial grin. I opened my mouth to ask Kurama a very important question, but quickly shot the idea down in favor of using it as leverage. What is it, Kit? The massive red fox asked, curious and a little ticked off. He growled as I shrugged, as if it was nothing. Boy, tell me your question. I hate not knowing what someone wants to ask or say. When faced with another of my blank stares, the fox's eyes screamed anger and rage. His paw shot out of the cage lightning fast, so I almost didn't see it. I knew there was the end right then and there as the menacing ivory claws that made Katana look like kunai closed in. Just as I braced myself, the paw stopped, however. The QB's eyes looked at me hesitant, gave one last soft growl, and disappeared. Naruto, we should move out now before any serious shit happens. All right then, Kurama, you ready to show them how shit is done? I grinned, already excited. For some reason, every time Kurama and I worked together a little and he acknowledged me, I got excited and happy. Maybe it has to do with wanting to be friends with this demon. A sinister though happy chuckle sent shivers down my spine. The happy and sadistic natures didn't mix well at all, reminding of Gaara when he was possessed. However, knowing Kurama, it confirmed my question. Immediately red chakra shot through my system, mixing with the blue chakra to create an intensely powerful chakra like nothing I'd ever felt before. I spaced back into the real world. Looking at my clones, I signaled them to go, relaying the message mentally. Ino, I am certain Itachi is using a Jinjutsu to hide the place because otherwise we'd see some missing Trilene. Also, he is very good at Jinjutsus while we are still not entirely the best at detecting them. I told Ino as the clones spread out in 5 different directions. That makes sense, though you took very little time to deduce that. Ino responded with a suspicious glint in her light blue eyes, though her lightly tanned skin showed no such trace in an attempt to hide her thoughts. Her sandals made the softest squeak against the smooth bark as she shifted to a crouch. And, Naruto, speak for yourself. I can sense Jinjutsu and really any chakra quite well, especially with some of my father's training and sensing. Rather than the offended tone that would accompany this, Ino sounded cocky and eager to prove it. Her lean muscles flexed and released as she launched herself to the next tree, platinum blonde hair glinting and waving, while the sun's radiance created a nimbus of light around her body. I followed her as she jumped from tree to tree, scanning the area constantly. Feeling that the scanning was pointless, I sent chakra through the Sharingan to see what Ino was doing. Immediately, Ino seemed to slow down as I was able to track her movements. The leaves had a much sharper definition to the point that I could see every blemish, shadow, and shape. I looked back at Ino and gasped in awe of what she was doing. She had built chakra into a sphere in her head to track Itachi's chakra signature, though I noticed it wobbled and wasn't super compact. That may hinder her range and sensitivity a bit, meaning that Ino needs to get closer for the jutsu to work effectively, I hypothesized. My palms slipped, slick with sweat, anxious that I was indeed wrong, that maybe Ino wouldn't be able to find Itachi, that we would fail utterly despite the training we had received. A soft gasp pulled me from my worries, alert for any nearby dangers. Naruto, I think I have luck, Ino whispered as she pressed forward, pivoting to the right as she landed before rocketing in the other direction. The blonde Kunoichi reacted so quickly, I could barely process what she had said before her silhouette shrank less than half its usual size. In addition, her feet made less sound than a stalking cat. Damn it, Ino, wait up for me. I ground my teeth in frustration, calling the clones to follow Ino in pincer formation. Feet skimmed the bark of the branch, keeping contact to minimum. Legs and chakra pumped hard to deliver half maximum thrust. Cool wind howled, stinging the skin. Rich brown and lush green blurred together, the trees blurring together. Chakra blocking out noise only took the edge out of the banshee that was the wind. Finally, Ino's body grew back to its normal size, allowing me to slow down and cut 50% of the chakra coursing through my legs. Quit making all that noise, Ino hissed under her breath, just loud enough so that I could hear. It took me a moment to realize I had begun to breathe a little heavier from the burst of speed and the noticeable tapping of my feet. I grunted, not wanting to offend Ino with an outburst as it wouldn't be conducive to the mission. Ino's inhaled sharply, a look of alarm on her face as she stared at mine. "What is wrong with your eye, Naruto?" Ino blurted out, barely toning down her volume. "Is this a stupid joke or something that you're playing with me?" Oh shit. Ino's wide eyes screamed bloody murder as she looked at my secret. Her knuckles cracked as she clenched her hands into fists ready to thrash me. Ino, I sort of forgot to tell you about it. I stuttered and stumbled through the words out of embarrassment and worry. Chakra receded, though only a little, from her fists. You see, well, after the fight, Sasuke removed one of his Sharingan and replaced it with my right eye. Well, at least that is what I'm pretty sure happened. I spilled, rubbing my hair. I was more certain of it now that I knew what my parents looked like and how they were. Neither of them looked remotely like Uchiha, though it was curious that Sasuke would do that. Ino growled a little, letting some of her anger vent. I could practically see the steam fuming from her ears and nose. "Are you crazy or something, Naruto?" Ino asked. "Do you honestly think that Sasuke would ever do that for you?" "I think he would only do that on the verge of death, and then only maybe." Red blazed across her lightly tanned face, brows furrowing in anger and confusion, convinced that I had either lied or didn't understand everything that happened. The words brought with them an ominous shroud of doubt, ignorance, and uncertainty once again. Could it be that Sasuke was intentionally trying to trick me, or did he know that I had a Sharingan and wanted to bring it out? I thought, holding my chin between my index finger and thumb, pensive about such an incident. The more I thought and divulged into the situation, only more questions sprung into mind, not helping in the least. This can wait for later. "Let's go. We have a mission to accomplish." I interrupted both Inos in my train of thought. She nodded with a grim smile, slipping through the shadows toward Itachi's signal as the clones arrived. Sharingan activated as they crawled into advantageous positions. I looked straight ahead and indeed saw that the wall of trees and bushes was a complex illusion detailing depth, shade, and even animals and sound. My Sharingan barely pierced through the well-constructed veil of it all, giving a blurry image through it all. Lo, and behold, the clearing splayed out ahead, while a few figures crouched behind cover, waiting for us anywhere but behind. Obviously, this may be where the real Itachi was. Help me out here, please. I have the 10 clones in pincer formation, and we can make out some details, but not enough. Can you slip in and counter the Jinjutsu, Ino? I confessed, ashamed that I needed to ask her to do something so simple. I wasn't so proficient with canceling Jinjutsu of such high caliber, rather only just above basic. Ino just nodded, a slight frown creasing across her face in vague annoyance at the task of having to sneak in and report findings after canceling the jutsu. Clearly, she wasn't so impressed by the fact that I couldn't effectively counter the Jinjutsu despite the Sharingan. Fine, dope, but don't expect me to wait up on you. I improved my techniques quite drastically. In fact, I learned a new mind control jutsu and know a few new offensive medical nin skills, mainly involving paralysis and precise internal cuts. The eagerness and sadistic glee in those last words made me squirm. This clearly wasn't all entirely a charade, since no one can truly fake such a thing. Mainly, the grin had me worried that Ino may experiment on me if I try anything stupid. Before I could ask her anything, she activated a seal and hopped through the Jinjutsu mirage. I sighed, praying that Ino would be okay, as she flipped a couple signs and leaped through the Jinjutsu, taking out a couple kunai. Thok, 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 the unmistakable sound of 3 thrown blades cutting into something fell faintly. I thought of the worst as soon as I heard those sounds, a sick anger lighting up kindling. A soft groan. My heart fell, shattered by the noise. I fell on my knees, seeing Ino's body on the ground, blood flowing through her mouth. The fiery pain of steel cutting into flesh, and it was over. The memory played itself in less than a second, coming to me in detailed flashes and emotions. I looked to the left and saw that one clone was missing. Nice Jinjutsu, Itachi Sensei, I stated with a sly smile, but you must be really stupid to try that again on me. Or are your skills failing from the lack of practice? A faint HN at 4 o'clock was all I needed. Big mistake. He was right in the crossfire. Wind release, gale palm. Fire release, great fireball jutsu. Me and my clones whispered 5 per jutsu. Blasts of wind caught the flame of the fireball as they collided, turning the flames white and turquoise with intense heat and speeding up the flames by 6 times. A bright explosion as they mapped to the stand of trees, sending 8 an intense have of heat that singed my hair and knocked me back several feet. Embers, burning leaves, flaming bark, ash, and flame created a mosaic of destruction, leaving only charred wood, a crater, and scorch marks. Itachi, I gave you a chance to escape, but let's see what state you dash. I crumpled as a black blur slammed into my abdomen, interrupting my thoughts with pain and lack of oxygen. The ground came up with a thud, and I lay gasping for breath, face to the side. I could barely move. The pain burned. Hey kid, get ready. A quick warning before a tide of red shot through my chakra pathways, turning the once indigo chakra to a purplish vermilion. Almost instantly, the pain faded in favor of a burst of power. Sharingan activated, I noticed the shadow of an axe kick descending. In a rush of speed, I flipped up, throwing my right hand with enough force to catch the kick while leaving the kicker off balance. The face that looked at me, however, wasn't Itachi's. In fact, I couldn't see it at all. Only a ninja mask hood and a headband with the symbol of the Sand Nation. Nails extended and sharpened slightly into claws, anger clouding some of my better judgment, causing me to clamp them around the ninja's calf and launch him on his back. A scream of pain, and he flew 10 feet before slamming and skidding his way across the ground. The thump was sickening, and the angle of his body was, it seemed, wrong. Surely, I had broken more than just his leg. Perhaps his left arm, too. Such power! Kurama, how come you didn't do this before? I thought, gazing at the chakra in my hand, glowing intensely in the Sharingan. Naruto, you have definitely used this power and in multiple occasions. Against Haku, Sasuke, Neji, and others. In other words, I've saved your ass and you owe me. The Kyuubi's voice growled and had a hint of bitterness and slyness in it, which immediately threw me off. More surprising was the angle that the fox was taking. You know, Kurama, I owe you nothing. If anything, you are atoning for all the heartbreak and death you have wrought. However, I know for a fact that people deserve second chances, and that is why I still offer friendship. I bit back without an ounce of fear, feeling my own chakra flare out. I was done playing games with the fox and living in fear of him. Either we bury the hatchet or I will shut him out. I could hear a little whimper in the fox's throat, probably hearing my proclamation and knowing that I will never go back on my word. You know, Naruto, I may take you up on that, but you have to prove yourself to me. Show me this through your actions and prove to me that you can stand up to the darkness. Only then will I consider your offer, Naruto Namikaze Uzumaki. With this, the fox's voice disappeared, its proclamation final, and something I couldn't understand. I mean, he was letting me use his chakra and everything, so we were allies of convenience, yet he demands I meet him all the way. Only then it occurred to me that something had happened to cause him to be like this. Something to do with humans and his Jinchuriki. I promise, Kurama, that I will do just that. I whispered to myself before looking up and steeling my face, determined more than ever. I will show you compassion, strength, friendship, and all the good qualities people possess. With this, I dropped myself onto all fours and launched myself across the battlefield, noticing the seeing Ino sneaking up to 2 shinobi, though not realizing the trap. Itachi POV. I observed Naruto as he took out the shadow clone in the tree before being jumped by one of the sand ninja that I hired. And Naruto almost got served too. Much to my relief, the blonde shinobi took care of the man, yet the method that he used frightened me. A cloak of purplish vermilion chakra surrounded his body, radiating sheer power. Worst, his nails turned into partial claws, his teeth were longer and sharper. His left eye had turned into a slit, and his Sharingan had a magenta color with white-silver fawn-like tomos rather than the usual red with black comas. That Sharingan, its color. I've seen that color eye before. But on whom? I muttered as I racked my brains for answers, tightly gripping a forked branch with my left hand and holding onto the one supporting my feet with the right. I needed to be still and grounded to recall such memories with dark paths. A purple eye full of malice and hatred and pain with rings like those in a tree trunk. Memories and ghosts from a past. The organization I grew more powerful in Akatsuki, anywhere from terrorists to murderers to evil masterminds, all S-ranked missing mean. Pain, the leader, that's who had those eyes. Its powers so powerful. The Mangekyo Sharingan seemed a toy. The eyes were called Rinnegan, like the sage of the six paths. And now that Naruto has a Sharingan with the same color, I can only hope he will be able to defeat the Akatsuki and the mastermind behind it all. I thought, clenching my grip so the rough part splintered and cut into my palms. While Naruto admired the power he possessed, I looked over to see Ino sneaking through the shadows towards two shinobi, the smirk on her face giving away the confidence and cockiness. The platinum blonde didn't realize she walked into a trap. Springing from the shadows with the grace of a feline, two kunai cut through the air like arrows at the shinobi, and the trap sprung. Three voices shouted, "Water release," "Wild water wave," as three jets of high-pressure water flew at Ino from behind just as the kunai hit their marks, causing the water clones to collapse. Ino somersaulted to the side wide-eyed in surprise of the ambush, rocked by the concussive blast and the wave of water that followed. The blonde kunoichi rose with wobbling knees from the sprawled position, hair and clothes soaked in water. She coughed out a little water, panting and thinking of a strategy as she raised her guard. A flash of purple vermilion rocketed in Ino's direction, and before I could register anything despite the Sharingan, the figure held a toned-down Rasengan formed in his right hand and slammed it into the chest of one of the water shinobi. A flash of bright purple from the explosion, and the Chunin ragdolled through the air and slammed hard into a tree. His body splayed on the ground at odd angles, and I let out breath in a hiss, realizing that any C-ranked ninja would not be a match for Naruto. "Water release, water bullet," one of the shinobi shouted, Naruto following in 1/100th of a second. The roar and crash of pressurized water colliding rang through the clearing with Naruto's stream of water slamming through his opponents. Clearly, the Jinchuriki had pumped it up with extra chakra. The water collided with a log last second as the ninja used Kawarimi. I sighed, happy that he didn't get caught by the jet of water that was doubled in size as it tore down a few trees with thunderous cracks. In a flash, the last one spent no extra time, unsheathing her katana as she rocketed towards Naruto with incredible speed, knowing that the inexperienced Sharingan user would still find it hard to judge and predict her movements. Steel flashed in a blurs that caught the sun, giving Naruto little time to counter with his two kunais, needing to use both of the blades despite the extra strength boost, since speed and momentum would cause his wrist to fold and cause the blade to slide. Slowly, the blonde shinobi was pushed back by the relentless assault of steel with the occasional chakra-buffed kick or elbow. He started to pant and shudder at the effort, though those were the only signs of tiring. Somehow, his body could keep up while his mind wasted away. As the 100th blow fell, the first mistake appeared. Naruto raised the kunai to block the blade, but instead of it colliding against the kunai, the kunoichi shot a lightning fast kick at his abdomen with a loud thump. I grimaced, hearing the gasp and groan from 30 meters away. His grip loosened on his kunai, and as he tried to block the next two slashes, they flew to the side and clattered across the ground. Mind-body disturbance technique, Ino exclaimed, trapping the kunoichi just before she released her axe kick. Quickly, the kunoichi pivoted so the axe kick became a roundhouse kick, missing Naruto by inches, and leaving him an opening. He growled and delivered a flurry of roundhouse kicks, each one landing with a sickening thud, till the kunoichi's legs gave and she collapsed battered. Ino exhaled, and I noticed that she couldn't effectively use the technique for extended periods of time as she lacked proper control. But in the right circumstances, she could use it to great effect. Good job. Ino, you are stronger than you may think. That was a battle-hardened ninja you were able to control, which is a hard thing to do, I thought, grinning at the talent I saw before me. Naruto, what the hell is wrong with you? Ino exclaimed, flabbergasted by the appearance of her friend. He looked at her in total surprise, still encased in that chakra cloak. What's with the chakra around you? It only has some of your normal chakra, but the rest is something ancient and deadly. Even more importantly, your eyes, they're all changed and different. Wait, what? I knew about the chakra cloak, but you said both eyes changed, Naruto responded, raising a confused eyebrow. His eyes widened as Ino flipped out a mirror, showing him his face. Whoa, the Sharingan, it's so different. I think I can feel it too. It's more powerful, and I think it can help me copy faster. The boy muttered to himself in awe, leaving Ino even more confused than before. As Naruto looked up at Ino, he gave her a sly grin. Well, Ino-chan, the story goes that I have a demon of pure chakra inside me. Ino gulped, slight anxiety showing on her face. Thoga, normally unperceptive, the blonde's face fell when he saw her reaction, clearly losing confidence and rethinking what he should say. Naruto, are you sure it's safe for you to use its chakra? I mean, won't the demon hurt you? Ino replied, so soft, the raven spying on them could barely hear and relay her voice to me. You're using its life force while it's trapped inside of you, which would make it angry, right? Ino clarified at the stunned Naruto. Similarly, my jaw dropped at her comment. I had thought that her anxiety was out of fear for herself, not fear for Naruto. And since when did you care about Naruto? Ino-san, I thought, disturbed and confused by Ino's uncharacteristic response. I haven't really thought about it that much, Ino, Naruto replied with a shaky breath, nervously rubbing the back of his head. I guess it might, but as far as I can tell, there isn't really an advantage for the demon in question. He is sealed in me after all, so he can't really break out or anything. And if I die, he dies too, so it's beneficial for him to help me, I guess. Naruto seemed to be puzzling this out in his head as if he had really never thought about it and found it relevant to some sort of puzzle. Predictably, the blonde shinobi dropped the serious attitude quickly and looked back up with a flare of determination in his eyes. In any case, it doesn't matter right now. We should take all the advantages we have to secure those scrolls, Ino. Otherwise, we are completely screwed. Ino gave a small smile, her determination resurfacing as she drew a tanto and a kunai, both underhanded, keeping her stance wide as she scanned the area. Naruto followed suit, this time drawing the 2 chakra blades I gave him and began channeling his wind chakra into a blue-green serrated blade about the length of his forearm. Curious no sado clones, Naruto? Why would you owe? So they aren't picked off before they could do anything. Smart. I smiled, proud that Naruto had been taking my lessons to heart. However, now it's time to lose my students. You have shown good enough teamwork. With that thought, I sent a raven into the sky, cawing 3 times fast and once long. The signal for the last group to attack, made solely of a pair of jonin. Leaping down from the trees, a muscular, jovial hulk of a man landed gracefully on the ground, wearing the headband of the village hidden in the clouds. A pair of sunglasses and a black goatee adorned his face. A jovial look, dark skin, white flak jacket, and white blonde hair made the Jonin look slightly friendly even before a fight like now. Cracking his knuckles and drawing 2 swords. However, the Jonin looked formidable with his determined face while in a crouch. Naruto shuddered a little bit as he saw the 2 opponents facing him, me and the said Jonin, making me question just how overkill this might be. Raising his head, he hissed as the sun glinted off his sunglasses. The sun is killer in my eyes. Is it afternoon already? The baritone voice of the Jonin complained. Naruto and Ino sweat dropped as the mood broke from the Jonin's comment, both mentally face-palming. Wait, what? Bro, you brought me, the killer bee, to help you train a couple of kids. This is a joke, right? Bee asked, clearly bothered by the thought and ignoring the fact that they took out highly skilled ninja with relative ease when working together, and ignoring Naruto's chakra cloak as if it was ordinary. Rather than pull up his guard, Bee sheathed both his swords and raised his fists instead. I won't need those against these 2, he announced with a bored yawn. I'm sorry to tell you this, Bee, but why the hell did you have T.O. break the mood? I shouted at him, pissed that he couldn't keeping his horrible rhymes, poetry, and catchphrases to himself. It was kind of like Guy Sand's eyebrows, complete mood killer. He just gave me a blank look, allowing me to calm the raging storm of anger. Oh well, nothing can ever be perfect, but still. Killer Bee, do you understand what is in front of you right now? The heiress of the Yamanaka clan and Naruto Uzumaki. The former a great mind control and medic nin student, and the latter, the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails with a Sharingan. I whispered in his ear. Immediately the Hulk tensed a little, understanding something and realizing the importance of it. Ah, that makes sense, Itachi, but that doesn't change the fact that they are still genin that can so far only beat Shunin, Killer Bee muttered matter-of-factly. This time, though, he raised his fists and widened his stance into an aggressive powerhouse style that used lightning, quick, powerful strikes and solid defense techniques to defeat opponents. All right, kids, bring it on, Bee shouted with enthusiasm, locking his eyes with Naruto. Something about the boy made this Jinchuriki eager and excited. With a sigh, I dashed towards them with a burst of chakra, gathering up wind chakra around my appendages. Naruto was my first target. I'll let Killer Bee take Ino because I had a bad feeling about a battle between 2 Jinchuriki. I could see Naruto's eyes widen slightly as a Sharingan traced my path and movements with expert precision. Too bad you won't be fast enough, though. I thought as last second, I accelerated even faster into a flying roundhouse kick. So slowly Naruto began to dodge, or so it seemed. A moment before impact, the blonde's chakra cloaked forearm batted at my leg. I twisted midair, seeing the movement, allowing the powerful blow to spin me to behind and to the left of Naruto, already prepping an attack. Fire release. Phoenix Sage fire technique, launching a bunch of fireballs at Naruto as he wheeled around. Water release. Water bullet. Naruto tried to counter, blowing a jet of water at the fireballs, but I jerked most away, slamming the rest at Naruto's leaping form. He braced, the explosion of fire knocking him backwards. He had tumbled back from the direct hit. His cloak weakened and burns appeared on his body that began to slowly heal. Fire release. Great fireball jutsu. I shouted, blasting a huge ball of flame at the blonde shinobi, following up with a volley of air bullets to strengthen the jutsu. The fireball rocketed white hot, turning some of the sand into glass before exploding in a fiery sphere of blazing radiance. The shout of Naruto's pain made me wince, worried that I had overdone it. A loud growl and a blur shot straight at my chest, holding a spiraling sphere of chakra. Thinking of nothing else, I met the sphere with a punch of tightly woven fire and wind chakra to form a drill around my arm. Blinding vermilion light, burning pain shooting up my arm, roaring explosions. The blast sent me flying weightless and disoriented across the clearing. The gravel and sand stung as it ripped some of my skin and embedded itself into some of the burns on my right hand. I felt a disconcerting fatigue settling in as I had no idea Naruto possessed such power in this form. That chakra in the Rasengan was destruction incarnate. Warm blood trickled out of the wounds on my arm, testament that if I hadn't packed a wall of spiraling chakra, I would have lost it. Fuck you, Naruto. I'm not going easy on you anymore, especially with that new Sharingan. You want to learn? I'll give you payment in full. I spat in bitterness. Truth was, the kid had bruised my ego, and that didn't go unpunished. I leaped across the clearing, gathering chakra in my palm, having seen what Naruto had done with the Rasengan on multiple occasions. Now it was time to test it out myself. Rasengan, I shouted as a sphere bluish chakra spiraled in my palm, swirling tightly and depleting a noticeable amount of chakra. The body of the shaken Naruto dashed back as the sphere of chakra slammed into the ground where his lower back had been a second before. A shining explosion of chakra, a concussive blast, and flying shards of rock and dirt immediately followed, leaving a sizable crater in the ground. Out of the corner of my vision, I saw the blur of movement, and I instinctively lashed out with a backhand strike to the forehead meant to daze. Instead, it slammed into something hard, shifting it back a little and causing some of the support to give. Not waiting to see who or what it was, I followed up with a 1-2-3 set of jabs to the torso. None landed. On the contrary, lightning quick, chakra-cloaked hands blocked the incoming punches with perfect anticipation. Again, I delivered a spinning roundhouse kick and flurry of chakra-enhanced strikes, beating back Naruto under a storm of precise, expert punches. The sheer volume of strikes, combined with their precision, should overwhelm the shinobi, considering even Jonin have difficulty against this. In fact, I felt the thud of skin on skin as most of the body shots landed on Naruto, knocking him off balance, leaving him open, or just inflicting pain and a battering of force. He groaned as well over half the body shots landed, delivering bruises and battering his bones into submission. Slowly but surely, the blonde shinobi began to tire more as he took more shots, freezing up his body. Pants, sweat, and blood filled the air as some of my punches slammed into his face, splitting his lips and bloodying his nose. Naruto tried to counter with a handful of kicks and punches, but only a few actually landed. And I was glad for it. Each one was like being hit with a sledgehammer or by a gorilla. In other words, fucking painful as hell, not to mention muscle spasms caused by the chakra. With each passing second, I could feel my stamina ebb just a little by utilizing my chakra to enhance blows and counter the few desperate of Naruto. I needed a bigger opening to wail on Naruto, since I couldn't hit any of his soft organs or weak points. However, as the chakra enhanced, fast and strong strikes battered the blonde shinobi, he became more sloppy, more tired, and more docile, unable to catch his breath. The boy was just getting battered and knocked, but came back for more despite the heavy bruising, contusions, slight stress fractures, and bleeding. Naruto, what's the problem? You should give up already, I spat, stinging his ego after landing a crushing axe kick in between his shoulder blades. You will never be able to beat Sasuke. You're a worthless waste of time, dope. Don't even bother getting up. Naruto groaned as I kicked him in the kidney, causing him to roll a couple meters completely exhausted. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding as I got the quick break, taking out a couple soldier pills, ready to pop them. Naruto kept still, making me break a sweat in worry, believing I might have taken it too far. I could still hear his breathing, however. Clearly you need some more encouragement, I thought, slight guilt pitting my stomach. Naruto, know something. You will never ever become Hokage. You put shame on the two clans you were born in, disgracing their names. Instead of a proud warrior or tactician, you are a cowardly, weak clown. And even worse, you can't even save your friend from the darkness. So quit your delusional dreams and give it up, demon filth. I cut with barbed poison words that pushed his every button in fear, hoping to get a reaction from him. Suddenly, the chakra cloak blazed back on emanating ancient fury and killer intent. Naruto's shoulders trembled as if he were crying. I would have drawn a sharp intake of breath in guilt if I hadn't noticed the noise. An evil, maddened cackling erupted from Naruto. You just had to go too far, didn't you, Uchiha? Naruto growled, still half cackling with savage, hysterical anger, but it wasn't Naruto. The voice spoke with a certain shrewd and wise air, while being 1.5 octaves lower than Naruto's normal voice. Cold beyond measure. There was no question this thing had killed for the sake of it. Naruto, what did I do? I thought, frantic at the mistake I may have just made. The cloak was much larger and more solid than before, not to mention more blood red. I shivered, haven't faced as powerful chakra as this in a long while. I need to use the Mangekyo Sharingan to defeat this, but I also have Killer Bee. Speaking of whom, bro, if you don't mind, let me handle this. I was the same as him at one time, and I do have a bijou. Killer Bee interjected, entirely serious seeing the threat. Naruto had just sprang up and twisted before us, revealing longer fangs, a slight mane, claws instead of fingernails, and more obvious whiskers, besides the zealously twisted sneer and the altered Sharingan. B removed his swords and channeled lightning through them, seeing the challenge in the blonde's eyes. "Wait, B," I said, planting my hand against his shoulder to restrain his movement. "Let me finish what I started. Besides, I haven't even really tried. Time to take the gloves off." Chapter 6. Kurama POV. "Kid, the fuck you think you're doing?" I growled at Naruto. True, Itachi was an S-rank shinobi, but so should Naruto. Well, if he listened to me and let me out of my damn cage, that is. I mean, sure, Yubi could pop out of the boy, but what good would it do then? I won't be able to influence people, and I'd be way out in the open and draw lots of unwanted attention. I thought, grumbling over the fact that Naruto could be so stubborn. However, because of his inability to follow my instructions and not vent my chakra when I gave it to him, Naruto could not defend himself at all. Instead, the Uchiha's fists blurred at impossible speeds, piercing the cloak of chakra that I tried to solidify and battering Naruto in such a manner that Naruto could only get a couple punches. It was embarrassing, especially in front of the Hachibi, Gyuki. After Itachi's axe kick between the shoulder blades, supercharged with wind and water chakra, knocked whatever fight Naruto had left, leaving him beaten and immobile where he lay now. And that really pissed me off, though I could feel the pain from Itachi's kick and couldn't help wincing. "Itachi's too strong, Kurama. I'm trying, but you're not doing anything to help besides giving me too much chakra for me to control." Naruto shot back, feeling dejected and hopeless, perhaps the only time he has ever given up. His eyes blazed with frustration and his brows furrowed, upset with his lack of one-on-one ability. He met my gaze for a second, revealing my chakra's effect on his Sharingan, piercing and more menacing the other Uchihas, and more powerful than Kakashi's, but not quite as strong as having two. "Naruto, the lack of ability and perseverance is upsetting. I'm beginning to regret helping you if you can't manage my chakra," I remarked back, tracking into the shadows and drawing back most of my chakra to make him beg or ask for it. Itachi wouldn't let him stay down. No, I knew that the Uchiha would provoke him, so I had to wait just a little. Almost as if I had signaled it, I could hear the stinging taunts of Itachi. With each remark, Naruto's defiance crumbled and his anger and darkness surfaced. The shuddering of the ninja before me and the kaleidoscopic range of expressions on his face caused something warm to light in my chest, something foreign and wrong. Sympathy, was it? No, impossible. Humans are all the same, heartless and destructive. You cannot feel pity for this naive child. Use your advantage and push Naruto. I pressed down the emotion without another thought and grinned as sadistic pleasure coiled through my body. All I needed was to work with Naruto's anger. "Hey, kid, are you just gonna let that Uchiha mock you like that?" His words are the same as everyone else's who inflicted pain on you. Prove him wrong, Naruto. Prove to all the people that they are wrong. The emotion flooded and tempting, goading voice caught Naruto unawares. Sweet temptation wafted from Naruto, a need for vengeance and revenge. Hurt, anger, sorrow, malice, and fear shook violently together as if a martini. He looked down at his feet and the water in the flooded area. After a few seconds, Naruto looked back up with an expression I'd never had seen on him before, fury mixed with a need for guidance. What should I do, Kurama? Naruto asked innocently, though the dark intent in his voice was impossible to miss. My, my Kurama, how smooth, I thought with a satisfied smile, having to stifle an evil cackle. Kit, channel all your hate, fury, and emotion through yourself, and let it control you in the fight. Mix the cold, calculated killer with your fury, and let me give you a flood of my chakra. Don't block it. But wouldn't that allow you to control me? Naruto asked with a skeptical look, freezing my heart, thinking he had just caught me. I couldn't breathe, yet wanted to curse away. I want to see it for myself and experience it, Kurama. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a point, he finished with a dark glare. His hands had tightened into fists and his eyes sharpened with rage, ready for a smackdown. The sheer determination in his words was palpable. All right, then, let my chakra flow with some of yours and limit it when necessary. You should be able to show them your power and prove them wrong. I had to admit that Naruto was a little too gullible for my taste, but at least it served my purposes well enough. We wouldn't be able to defeat the Uchiha, most probably, but at least we could press him hard. And Tsukiyomi shouldn't be much of a problem. If anything, it may allow Naruto's Sharingan the final push, I thought with utter pleasure. The day he awakened it, I'd be virtually impossible to stop, as long as my hypothesis about what I could do to the Mangekyo is correct. As Naruto nodded, I unleashed a flood of chakra through his chakra system, attaining a small amount of freedom that I hadn't had in a while. I accessed Naruto's vision, seeing the scene before me. I could feel more of the pain that Naruto felt, directing my chakra to fix the damage, and raised up another chakra cloak, this time adding additional power to it. Influencing Naruto's movements wasn't too hard, yet I couldn't fully control him. Yet, in a flash, I flipped Naruto to his feet with his back to Itachi. The urge to be dramatic and the importance of an intimidation factor wasn't lost on me. I spun to face Itachi and let fly a dangerous sneer. I was so absorbed in the visibly tired Uchiha, with a few injuries and the hate I felt for his kind, that I didn't notice what this dark version of Naruto said, only hearing Itachi's comment. I haven't even really tried. Time to take the gloves off, the tall, raven-haired Uchiha muttered with a certain satisfactory gleam in his Sharingan eyes, which I couldn't help but balk at. I remembered that same expression of that Uchiha responsible for my rampage. And even worse, he had the audacity to pretend that none of the injuries from the Rasengan showed. Well, Itachi, you have no idea what you are about to face, and you will taste my wrath, I thought with fury and malice, already picturing the spattered bits of gore across the Uchiha after I finished him. And I hear a hand across the training ground, a huge smear of blood in the middle, his intestines in a nearby tree. Realizing I'd started daydreaming, I brought myself to reality once more, seeing that Itachi had not moved, though Naruto was staring straight at his eyes. Dumbass, I thought, lowering Naruto's gaze and lunging at Itachi without warning, careful to leave all parts protected. The ground cracked as we pushed off toward the Uchiha. Though I calculated the speed of the jump to perfection, Itachi still seemed to dodge the spinning roundhouse kick to the temple, ducking under and to the right, completely avoiding the cloak, but being buffeted by the wind chakra. The impact crushed, and cut through the ground, creating a deep hole. Nice job, Uchiha. I'm impressed by your martial prowess, but I suggest you check your surroundings more thoroughly. I remarked with a certain bloodthirst and dark amusement, activating a seal. A small explosion rocked the ground a few meters to my right where Itachi once stood. Or so I thought. I wheeled around to see the handiwork, but only faced a smattering of raven feathers and charred raven remains. His signature clone, well, too bad he has that many less of them. I grinned despite the failure. Good to know he was using clones. At least I knew what to expect. I made a cross sign triggering Naruto's favorite jutsu and fired it up. A giant pop of pressure and a huge white cloud appeared and dissipated, revealing the army before me. 300 shadow clones with Sharingan and my chakra cloak. And I hadn't even gotten started yet. Are you ready, Sensei? I growled with sarcasm. You said you'll take the gloves off, so show me what you're worth. I roared the last part to taunt Itachi and attempt to draw him out, especially with another S-rank ninja present. I barely heard the high-pitched scream of tens of shuriken as they cut through the air, their gray-black steel catching the light. I flipped backwards as did most of the clones, but some weren't so lucky. From what I could tell, the shadow clone shuriken jutsu had taken out a tenth of the clones, and the deep holes and scorch marks in the earth made it obvious with what type of chakra they had been attuned with. Oh well, too late to triangulate your position, Itachi, but along with the clones, I gathered my chakra and blew a huge fireball at the trees, smashing the trunks into splinters and incinerating them. The heat rose dramatically from the fire, causing sweat to stream down Naruto's face. Now, where is he hiding? Naruto murmured with a deep, perhaps cruel voice with which I wasn't used to. I could feel his heart rate begin to heighten and a cold sweat begin to break on his forehead as his anxiety or nervousness grew. He pulled out a chakra blade and absent-mindedly channeled wind and fire chakra in quick succession, putting almost zero effort into the exercise, and the blades in and of themselves were larger than I had thought Naruto could handle. A flash of movement to the left, and as something leapt out of the flames, a shadow flying at such a high speed that the Sharingan had issues tracking it. Tsukuyami! Itachi shouted, locking eyes with Naruto as his Mangekyo activated, plunging him into a Jinjutsu. Damn it! I shouted, realizing that Itachi may use this to first dispel the influence I had or defeat Naruto while I had it. The world became a dark red as Naruto was thrust in a deadly nightmarish landscape that seemed ethereal, having been caught as a negative film in a camera. The stone was frigid as Naruto looked to the side, seeing the two people I despised the most, Minato and Kushina, staring down at him. A deafening, blood-curdling roar blasted close by as Naruto looked at the giant nine-tailed fox in front of him, otherwise known as myself, rampaging close by. Naruto tried to move or shout out, but couldn't. All he could manage was a baby cry. He noticed it immediately and looked down at his hands, revealing what he had feared. He was his little baby. I began to remember that night, the feeling of half of me being trapped and sent to hell, while the other half remained here. Minato Namikaze, I admit that this has perhaps been the kindest human who has been my Jinchuriki, but couldn't you have chosen anyone else? I must agree with Kushina that you shouldn't have done this to him. It will destroy him. And for that, I cannot forgive you if I ever forgive humans at all. Suddenly, Kushina shot her adamantine sealing chains holding me, still as Minato prepared the most feared and forbidden jutsu, Dead Demon Consuming Seal. As he captured my half, firing up pain to my retreating form, Minato decided to use the last of his life to seal the other part of me. He placed a seal on Naruto's stomach, and instantly Naruto cried out in so great pain as he saw his mother and father collapse as they died. One from the Shinigami, the other from having me released forcefully. Pain racked through Naruto from heartbreak, and the pain as this half of me bonded with Naruto to create a chakra network. His vision swam in and out, and the excruciating pain was obvious, as even I felt it. It was as if every molecule in both our bodies were separating and fusing at the same time, while being flash frozen and superheated. This time, pure rage erupted within Naruto as the landscape flashed and cracked in his vision. Something vital to him had broken, and suddenly I wished I wasn't inside him as I felt a sudden difference in Naruto's right eye and chakra, as if one barrier of some sort had cracked. The chakra of his own that I had been leeching on erupted out like a dam. Itachi's knees buckled as his infamous Jinjutsu broke abruptly, making him fall on one knee and spit out a little blood, drained as blood came out of his eye. He suddenly seemed vulnerable and more than little frail and ill. He was going to lose control anyway, was my theory. His breathing was more than a little heavy and slightly troubled. How did you go through all that, Naruto, and still be standing? That was supposed to allow me to beat you. Itachi spat, panting in exhaustion. I realized that all the clones had disappeared, and he had probably made shadow clones to make sure to get a few others, as he wasn't entirely sure. His own Mangekyo had blood dribbling down it, and began to fade back to Sharingan and into his original eye. Not only that, but his arms seemed to be burned. Naruto, on the other hand, still had a bunch of his chakra at his disposal, having used quite a bit of mine, I noticed, for breaking the Jinjutsu. Smart move, Kit. I complimented the annoying, yet surprising blonde. Shut up, Kurama. Naruto's inner voice retorted back to his normal one and free of that darkness. This anger that he now had was righteous in quite a few ways, causing me to unavoidably shiver as he sounded so much like Minato and Kushina. Itachi, what the hell did you show me? Naruto shouted, pissed off at his sensei. I tried to look through his eyes, but I felt the huge toll the jutsu had on me as I realized I was more than half in control of Naruto. I needed to rest and calculated that Naruto would soon collapse, noticing that he had made his own chakra into cloak-like armor. The last thing to notice before drifting off was a Mangekyo in Naruto's right eye, purple-red with a silver-white design that looked like the Namikaze clan symbol. 3 curved spokes, each with a sideways tomo attached. Itachi's POV. I looked at Naruto with utter awe. He looked beaten and destroyed, but his eyes held LL the defiance in the world. Scratches, cuts, gashes, bruises, and blood crowned the genin, yet he still stood. I began to understand exactly what the other presence was, the Kyuubi who was giving most of his chakra to Naruto the entire fight, healing him, though it took a physical, emotional, and mental toll on him, the evidence in the scorch marks and unsteady footing. And like before, another chakra cloak surrounded him, but this time, well, It was his own and what looked like quite an effective shield. I wouldn't have problem piercing it as I still had chakra, but my sickness had come back to sucker punch me as I hadn't taken much medicine recently, and the Mangekyo had a nasty habit of bringing it out. Moreover, the power within Naruto was insane, though self-destructive. Yeah, Naruto, I am pretty sure you know what I was talking about. What you saw and experienced was an illusion that I was a powerful genjutsu that is entirely based on what you experienced as a baby. That was what happened in that fateful night in Konoha, and I am pretty sure the QB will tell you the same. Besides, I took a calculated risk that worked for two main purposes. First, defeat you by wearing you down mentally and physically through experiencing the truth. And second, to activate something that should give you an additional boost in combat, your Mangekyo Sharingan. You experienced so many bad things in the past that I felt you could probably awaken the Mangekyo from that after re-experiencing one of those memories. I apologize for the cruel method, though, and I have to compliment you on breaking the Tsukuyami. I explained, rag with exhaustion as my heart's beat began to slow back down from the fast pumping. The soft dirt cushioned my legs and hands well from their exhaustion and drain, especially after another bout of sickness. It was about to fail, but still, Naruto, I doubt with your Mangekyo that you could be influenced by jutsu while knowing it. I lay my back against the lip of the crater, the earthy smell comforting my nerves, soft yet offering ideal support so that I could relax and regain strength. I began to question what I should do with the few remaining years of my life. Should I spend it with my love Ayam and marry her like the fourth and live as normal as a life while training or advising Naruto? Or should I try to find my brother? I don't know how much more my body can take, and without the proper cure, I may speed up the sickness and die. A noise snapped me out of the daydream as I stared at the blue sky peppered with soft white clouds. I blinked and looked back at Naruto, who had started collapsing to the ground. It couldn't have been more than a handful of seconds either. Though what worried me the most was that his eyes had began to roll up. Before I could do anything about the collapsing blonde shinobi, another figure with long, glistening blonde hair caught Naruto in her arms. Worry creased her smooth face and blared in her sky blue eyes. I know I can count on you when it comes to Naruto. You aren't the only one who can determine crushes. And besides, I am quite sure Naruto likes you. So why don't you do something about it? I grinned to myself, already knowing the answer and enjoying mentally teasing the girl to relieve my tired head. As Ino lied Naruto gently on the ground and tied bandages and healing salves to his wounds, while using a couple healing jutsu on the worst ones, particularly the fractures, the deeper gashes, and micro tears in his ligaments. After she was sure that Naruto was all right, mainly by the content light snores of the boy, she gave a small smile of satisfaction before facing me with a completely changed expression. What was that, Chi-sensei? Or should I call you Itachi? Ino growled as flames licked her eyes. Fists clenched tight enough that knuckles popped while chakra began to gather around her fists clearly to pump up her impact strength by quite a bit, or maybe even use chakra scalpels on me. A little spark of fear that I hadn't felt before ignited in me at the threatening presence and killer intent Ino now radiated. Every alarm in my body blared danger, yet I made sure to seem unfazed. Look, Naruto tried to fight me, and couldn't do it effectively despite me toning it down a few notches. I decided to up it a bit more, so he rose to the challenge. Eventually, he was using solely the chakra of another, more ancient being within him. It did do a number on me with a massive fireball attack, and when I noticed that, I decided to end it with my man Gekyo. I summarized for her in a nonchalant tone, knowing she had seen all of it. I knew that she didn't really do much because of the level of the battle, meaning I would need a trainer. Killer Bee may be able to train Naruto when I couldn't. The down look in her face made it all the more apparent, saddening me a little. Look, Ino, I will train you and teach you, all right? Just give me a half hour to rest, eat, and recover more chakra. I'm a little worn out, and also I'm a little sick, I said with a light, sympathetic tone. I couldn't forsake and forget about my other student. Ino gave a confident look, arms crossed sky blue, eyes now steel blue, indicating her determination. Perhaps her disappointment as well. Okay, Itachi, but can you teach me a couple combat jutsu? I need to be able to fight effectively, and honestly, taijutsu and medical jutsu isn't going to cut it. Ino reminded me matter-of-factly, though not in the annoying tone that I would have expected. She nodded when I gave her the directions to the large but well-concealed cave so that she could prepare properly. Turning around, she walked back to Naruto and picked him with the utmost care, probably using her chakra to enhance her strength, and began to carry him to the campsite. About a dozen steps into the process, Ino turned around with another look, this time more of a sweet one. Hey, Itachi Sensei, could you teach me the shadow clone jutsu? It may help speed up my training, Ino asked, batting her eyelashes, making me practically facepalm. She didn't need to do that for me to agree. She only made herself look like an airhead, which wasn't the case for the most part. Sure, Ino, I'll teach you the shadow clone technique, but only if you have enough chakra to make it worthwhile and helpful, as well as starting with summoning one perfectly and building your way up from there. If any of those aren't possible, I won't teach you the technique, I replied, setting down the restrictions in the most serious tone I could muster. Truth was, I already knew the answer, but I wanted her to worry about a little, because why should the rest of the world be in a good mood when I'm not? My arms and torso stung and ached as the fatigue and pain from the cuts, burns, bruises, mangekyo, and the use of copious amounts of chakra surfaced. I cursed silently that my adrenaline was already wearing off. Now, I'd have to use more chakra to get rid of the discomfort and make sure I don't get infected. Next time I sparred with Naruto, I'd go full on offense and strike fast and hard. Itachi, quite the pair of students you got there, don't you? Killer Bee commented a couple minutes after Ino had left the clearing. The voice of the tall Hulk still got some getting used to, since the baritone tenor voice didn't match with the expected gravelly, low, husky voice of someone with a lot of brawn. As testament to that fact, Bee's boots crackled against the ground as he stepped through the rubble of shining glass, earth, rock, and sand from the battle between me and Naruto. The potholes, scorch marks, gashes, and bareness to the clearing made it look like a war zone. You've got Naruto, who's the only Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails that has a Sharingan, a Mangekyo, I might add. Then you've got Ino, who's quite the sensor, medic, and controller Kunoichi, who can back up you and Naruto in a fight by finding hidden enemies, healing, tracking, immobilizing, and distracting via using an enemy's teammate against him. And from what I can tell, she learns fast. Killer Bee lectured with a "you're so lucky" look. Clearly his team didn't impress him much. Well, B, I sighed. You can help me with Naruto if you want. Teach how to control the QB and all that to maximize his chakra. Plus, we don't need Naruto to snap and go on a rampage in tail beast mode. The cool, setback, carefree tone to my voice clearly put an edge on B as he shivered from the less than sane tone of a psychopath. And from experience, they usually wrought bad news, Orochimaru being the best example. I looked through the sunglasses into his eyes to make sure to know how B really felt. After all, if he didn't want to train Naruto, he could be careless or even make him be weaker considering they were from different non-allied villages. All right, B, you pass. I exhaled after seeing no hint of malice in the Jonin. Nonetheless, even if he was repaying me a favor, I decided to watch the man. Sometimes your friends can become your worst enemies, and I had no shortage of those. Fully recovered and ready to begin training Ino, I stood up and stretched my body to release the stiffness and tension. I made my way out of the clearing towards the hidden cavern. The leaves whistled as a breeze rustled the trees, a calming sound like the peaceful surf as it breaks on the beach. Fresh air mixed with sweet pollen from blossoming flowers and the sharp alpine scent of coniferous trees as I bounded from tree limb to tree limb. The gray peak of the large, rocky hill peaked just above the canopy, a beacon guiding people home, approaching rapidly. After about 2 minutes of the brisk pace, I caught sight of the small clearing and the small river that wound through it. Waterfront property, I joked with a small smile, aware that the mouth of the cave was just 3 meters above the water and 20 times that far. Beautiful peach trees, cherry trees, oaks, and a few pines ringed the clearing, while smaller ones providing shade and fruit. In addition, raspberry, blueberry bushes, and thorn bushes ringed the hill, though they avoided the mouth of the cave and grew in random patches in the clearing. Wild and domestic flowers and rich marsh grasses grew from the banks of the river to the house carved into the very rock of the hill mountain, giving an illusion of beauty, peace, and happiness. Sweet, wild, fresh aromas of the pollinating wildflowers, fruit trees, and berry bushes. Busy buzzing and fluttering of hard-working bees and butterflies as they sucked nectar and pollinated the plants. Birds chirped melodies through the trees, caught by the beauty of the small patch of undisturbed paradise. While a small herd of does and baby deer roamed and grazed on the grasses lower down the riverbank. Fish hopped out of the water as a small school of coho salmon came up the river. I gave a sad smile as I saw these happy families, untainted and unbroken by the outside world. At least they had not gone through what I had as I longed for my family once more, but it would never be. Though Sasuke was family, I doubted that he would accept me anymore after not revealing myself to him. In fact, it may only spur him towards the darker path and cause him to destroy places like this. So the only family I truly had was myself, I am, Itachi, and maybe Naruto. I smiled at the memory of hearing Kushina and Mom saying that they would give birth a week later and that Mom would be Naruto's godmother. Poor Naruto. Things would have been much more different if anyone allowed you to be adopted, and if Kushina had time to finalize it. I thought sadly. I couldn't stand the way my younger brother in spirit was treated as a demon. I made sure to protect him the few times I could and did things for him from buying presents to giving him treats. A warm tear fell as I remembered getting Naruto his first ice cream and playing ninja with him on the playground. I'm not sure if he remembered me from that time, but it made me happy that I was able to help someone. "Hey, Itachi sensei," a loud, girly voice shouted full of energy. I couldn't help but crack a small grin when I say the blonde, waving her arms a couple meters from the mouth of the cave. Rather than revealing all the skin that she usually did, Ino added thin mesh armor on her arms and legs. Still, though, it hugged her body and curved a little too tightly for my taste, and the mesh leggings didn't exactly help either, not with that provocative pose she was in. If anything, it only made her more attractive. GH. You can't think like that, Itachi. First, you're going to propose to Iam, and second, Ino is like 5 years younger than you. I thought, almost going for my kunai to gouge out my eyes. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, massaging them to prevent from getting a migraine. "All right, Ino, I'm ready to train you," I said with confidence after leaping clear across the river and landing on the other side. She just looked at me in utter shock. The river itself was about 15 meters wide, and I had just cleared it from a standstill without using much chakra. Her eyes begged the question how. I only responded with a flashy, charming smile, knowing the effect it would have on Ino. It was clear she liked or admired me, but she would need to get over it, so by doing this it will help her concentration and willpower. Okay, in order to do the shadow clone technique, I want you to go into my mind and watch what I do. Do not try to take control of me. Just observe. I order with a warm tone, making the necessary seal. Ino nodded, not questioning me, and used her oldest trick, which made her consciousness travel in me. "Okay, I'm here," she said from inside my head, not taking control of me. As she realized the chakra I had at my disposal, her jaw dropped. "How are you able to use more jutsus than Kakashi can when you only have as much as he does?" she asked incredulously. My inner self could see the stars in her eyes, automatically aggravated by this. Two reasons. Very close to perfect chakra control and slightly more powerful chakra. This allows my jutsus to be more powerful and use up a lot less chakra. I replied as if I hadn't noticed the admiration and infatuation in her voice. "Watch closely as I do the jutsu. Ino, go it." When she agreed, I molded a small chunk of chakra and split it into 3 different sizes before copying my image into them and expelling them. In a cloud of smoke, 3